And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention, roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern Time. And, of course, it's Friday Roundtable with John, Marlon, and myself. Good morning, the Finest Unfiltered. I think this is a great discussion that we talk about right now. Zohran Mamdani, with his budget cuts we spoke about on Monday, Marlon and myself, and John took the day off. And now here we are. It's Friday in the Roundtable. And we told you about Zohran Mamdani. His plan should not cut essential needs for New York City. The most essential need for New York City is the NYPD. And Mamdani at this point is proposing cutting the NYPD budget. Where is he cutting it? Where is the proposal? Canceling 5,000 new officer hires. So think about that. We're talking about essential services right now within New York City, and that's the first place to cut. You have to ask yourself why and how does this affect New York City residents? Does it affect public safety? I think this is the last place you should be cutting at this point. So Zohran Mamdani's in less than 90 days has his entire plan has fell on its face, or was this plan to begin after all? Was this the plan from the beginning? Because it sure seems to be that way. So let's jump right into it. Let's dive into this and let's get your thoughts. Good morning to the chat. Good morning, friends and listeners. I see Hassan, you're back. I don't know where you've been, brother, but good to see you. Good to see everyone who's here. We appreciate it. Let's do it.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Anybody joining us on Instagram this morning, we can't see your comments. If you want to jump in the comments, jump in either YouTube or X in the live chat so we could bring up your comments up on the stage. So appreciate everybody being here. Look, to me, this is like a repeat of 2021. I mean, I'm just watching Eric Adams, the same mistakes. I'm watching Zohran Mamdani go down the same exact path. It's the dance that progressive politicians do. This is the dance. This is what it is. Like, they can't figure out anywhere where to take money from. They're lazy. Let's just get that out. They have zero work ethic. They're not people that are traditionally qualified to handle anything. They would fail as an administrative assistant. They would fail miserably as an administrative assistant. They would fail miserably at mostly any profession you could think of, including being a Starbucks barista, which I don't think is an easy job, by the way. But I'm just saying, entry level, anybody could kind of really become a barista, right? And I think when you look at politicians and Eric Adams wasn't a child of privilege. But he's an incompetent individual, and Zohran Mamdani is a child of privilege, and he's showing you his work ethic. He's showing you that he also is an incompetent individual, and he's pulling the same tricks out of the bag that Eric Adams did. Eric Adams told you he was going to move to the CMS version of violence intervention police. We were going to move away from policing. We were going to defund the police. We were going to lower the headcount of the NYPD. And it really, his first year in office was a debacle. Crime skyrocketed. His approval rate went below 28%. And he started to pivot, but it really, after his indictment, he fully pivoted. But he moved away from, I believe in 23, he started telling people how bad in 2023, started telling people how bad the mistakes he made actually were when it came to the migrant crisis. And he started telling you how he did more for illegals than he was going to do for you, taxpaying New Yorkers. And what he did was he said, you know what? Well, I think we're going to have to start cutting from all of our agencies again, 5% off the top from every single agency we had. And he told you he was going to defund the police, basically. Huge pushback, because that was during a crime spike. He was at historic lows in approval rating, way lower than even Bill de Blasio, which is amazing. And then he put it back. He said, all right, I'm not gonna do that. And he really didn't say anything else on that after. He didn't go back to the police after. That's when they started the whole Perception First reality campaign. It wasn't until Jessica Tisch became the police commissioner that he began to be in public perception began to change that actually New York City's safe now and it's the safest big city and crime's at historic lows. I mean, no one on here believes that to be true. I mean, obviously, this is just when you have a billionaire heiress who has many connections in the media, public perception could be easily manipulated, and public perception nationally has been manipulated. Public perception locally, on the other hand, totally different. So what Zohran Mamdani is doing is this same exact dance that Eric Adams did. Now, on the way out, when Eric Adams knew that he was no longer going to be the mayor, he said he was going to hire 5,000 additional cops. If you go back to the episode we did, we told you that's absolute garbage. This is a talking point. This is just a change. This is just a legacy protection for Eric Adams. He is not going to hire 5,000 cops. One, he can't even find the cops. Two, we don't have the money to hire the cops. So, but you're seeing Zohran Mamdani double down on nearly everything, and we'll go through this and other policies that are happening, but none of this comes as a shock to me. None of this should be a shock to anybody, especially the legacy media, because they've reported on literally every single thing they did through the de Blasio administration, through the Adams administration, and now we're watching the same song and dance with Mamdani. Nobody should be shocked by this. This is the game of politics, people.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Morning, chat. If you're out there today, it's a pretty miserable day in New York. So if you're on patrol, just be safe. Drive carefully. Miserable and wet. I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I mean, they knew this budget was going to be an issue years ago, and like I've been saying that. This the progressivism, like this whole defund the police movement of years ago, has all been a cover for austerity measures. And I mean, just think of it. Isn't it? Think how convenient defund the police is to what's happening now. For years, these politicians like brainwashed a certain segment of the population into thinking that defunding the police is actually, a productive way to solve the problems, police have had with communities. They brainwashed them into thinking it, and now he's actually doing it. And there are a lot of people who are not going to have an issue with him cutting money off the top of the police department, even though the police department represents merely 6%. Merely 7% of the budget, and they spend a lot more money in the social services than on the police department, and yet they're targeting the seemingly the first department that's getting targeted is the police department. So something to think about, as we're going forward, and in this discussion, and I'll bring it up again because I was diving into the numbers last night. And I'm going to say this that I'll get to as we come around again. Even though Mamdani's cutting money off the top of the police department, it's not going to make any difference to getting the actual numbers down. But it will make a difference in the level of service that the police are able to administer to the city. And that's the biggest problem here.
That's a huge problem, and that's why I find fault with Jessica Tisch's state address for the NYPD for 2026, because in her speech she mentioned a few issues, but one issue she did not mention, which I still have a problem with, she never mentioned morale within the NYPD, which I think is the biggest factor that should have been addressed for 2026. Especially, she talks about the COVID era. And from the COVID era up till now, I think morale should be the most important aspect for the NYPD. And I find it hard to believe that Jessica Tisch wasn't aware or informed at that point that there may be a cut to the supposedly 5,000 hires that are coming to the NYPD that Eric Adams promised. We believed it was hot air, but he still promised it. And you can't expect calls for service, especially 911 calls. The volume amount of 911 calls, and especially with the 311 system, you can't expect a short-handed, low manpower NYPD to provide the same to provide the same service. And I think morale is so important right now. You lost a huge a mass amount of veterans from the NYPD because of the mandated the vaccine mandate, and now almost 50% of the NYPD has less than 5 years on the job. It's a very young job. There's no one to guide them. Morale must be extremely low. And now, if we're not getting 5,000 officers, morale's going to hit even further because these guys are burning the candle on both ends. They're exhausted, the amount of overtime they worked, and the fact that there is zero plan out there, and most of the plan right now is either presence or being part of a mobile field force. So these guys are going to work, not knowing where they're working for the day. They have to move their equipment from one place to another because they're often being displaced. I think morale is huge. This affects morale, and it's not being addressed. And that's a major problem. In order to have a police department that provides good service, you need to have good morale within. And that's something that Jessica Tisch did not address in her message, and I find fault with. Again, I find it hard to believe that she wasn't informed that this potentially could happen. It was only about a week and a half ago that she gave that speech, and now we're at this point that 5,000 officers will not be hired. Huge problem for morale.
Well, I mean, the thing here is, Zohran Mamdani never said he was going to hire more cops. He said he was going to keep the levels at what they were. Right? That's different from what Eric Adams told you in 2021. Eric Adams said he was going to lower the headcount of the NYPD, right? So, and you guys voted for Eric Adams. Much worse than what Zohran Mamdani told you. Both of those, though, however, are a form of defund the police because, one, if you're lowering the headcount, you're defunding the police. Two, if you're saying in a time when you cannot retain experienced cops and you cannot hire young qualified recruits, because you can just hire anybody off the street, and that's exactly what the NYPD has been doing these last 4 years. Not true for everybody, but a lot of them. We've seen a lot of them, and we've seen some questionable things, very concerning things recently. We'll save that for another show. But when you're saying you're going to keep the head count at the same, you're lying. You're basically just saying, all right, I know that this is a diminished police department. I know that our attrition rate has increased significantly. I know that our attrition rate cannot even be contained. We're not going to be able to hire to keep up with attrition. So basically he's saying, I'm going to lower the head count because you have to overhire to compensate for what's happening in the NYPD currently. So this is 2021. This is prior to Adams getting into office. This is coming from a City and State article, right? I want you to tell me if this sounds familiar to you, right? Adams' spokesperson also said that Adams opposes defunding the police, but he's committed to $1 billion in savings through civilianization of certain work, which would then get reinvested into policing initiatives like the crisis management system, a program that sends violence interventors to mediate potentially violent situations and connect with people likely involved with gun violence without police intervention. Online, Adams' plan estimates $500 million in savings. So we had the same fiscal crisis that Zohran Mamdani was dealing with right now. We had the same thing in 2021. Eric Adams was fully aware of it. His staff was speaking about it, how we were going to be a near $10 billion budget gap. And what did he decide to do? What was his plans to save money? His plans to save money was to attack the NYPD the same way that Zohran Mamdani is doing it. And Marlon pointed out here, we went through all the charts. 40% of the budget is coming from the DOE. It's over $40 billion. I think it's closer to $50 billion. The New York City Police Department accounts for $6 billion of a $127 billion budget, roughly 7% of the budget. And that is the only place other than libraries that Zohran Mamdani is hinting at cutting. Now, why are libraries significant? One, libraries is significant because he attacked Eric Adams when Eric Adams said that he was going to cut funding to libraries. right? City council went after him. Zohran Mamdani went after him. Everybody went after him. They said, you can't do that. And I agree. Why library is the first place to get cut? You know, you talk about you want to raise the youth. You talk about you care about education. You talk about education is the pathway out of incarceration. And I agree with that statement. Totally. It's an empowerment into the workforce. It could literally change your life, change your way of thinking, and make you a competent person in society, powerful person in society. And yet, when push comes to shove, Zohran Mamdani, again, following the same blueprint set before him with Bill de Blasio, the same blueprint set before him with Eric Adams, here he is. NYPD and libraries. No, we can't get rid of diversity programs. We can't cut any money to funding migrants, right? Because, you know, hey, the grift's there for everybody, right? Whether it's the Republican Party, whether it's the Democratic Party, whether it's the billionaires, whatever they claim to be, Republican or Democrat or liberal or socialist, right? We can't stop the grift. Too much money in the homeless industrial complex, too much money in housing illegal immigrants and feeding illegal immigrants and clothing illegal immigrants and chauffeuring them around and ensuring that we bring third world crime here. No, we can't cut any of those programs. We can't look at any of these CMS programs and say, wait, where are the metrics for success? We can't cut any of that stuff. No. Diversity, equity, inclusion, top of the board, illegals, top of the board. All that stuff is at the top. We can't cut any of that. The only thing we could do is raise your taxes, cut your police services, and take away vital resources to your children. That is the only thing we could come up with. That is politics 101 in New York. And you know what? Shame on all of the Republicans for not pointing this out either, because they're fully aware of what the game is, and they just don't want you to see it. Because guess what? It's the same game that they play.
We talked about this last go around, right? This chart is indicating in percentages how much is being allocated to which department or social services or uniformed agencies, and you can see here the NYPD is 7%. So what's this 26% about, right? Well, the 26% is the Department of Homeless Services, the Department of Social Services, ACS, and the DYCDs, the Department of Youth. What is it? Youth Community. I believe it's Youth Services, right? Again, this is 26%, whereas the NYPD 7%, and in a lot of these social services are a lot of boondoggle, spending, spending that goes to a lot of the NGOs and community organizations that work with the city, and the thing is there any account for all this money that's going? We talked about this a couple episodes ago about the in particular about the CMS system, and the violence interrupters, and how there are no metrics to measure their efficiency. There are no metrics to grade how good of a job they do, So also keep in mind the DOE is at 40% right now, and this is 40%. And by the way, their budget has increased over the years, even though the number of kids going to New York City public schools is down by 100,000. So again, these politicians love focusing on the police department because, like we said before, they've spent like 10 years demonizing the police, and it's an easy target for them, as opposed to the social services and the DOE, which in the case of the DOE, they're also a very progressive voting bloc. So the Democrats, I don't think they want to scrutinize the DOE too heavily. But I'll talk about it next go around, and why I believe that defund the police in particular was an austerity measure. And that's because 30% of the budget is dedicated to fixed costs. And a lot of those fixed costs are employee pensions, benefits, and healthcare. And Eric Adams talked about it before when he talked to he had this community meeting where he talked about his fixed costs. And somebody asked him about defunding the police and how he's not doing enough of a job of it. And his response was that a lot of the spending in the police department is because of fixed costs. So when I said last go round that what they're doing is they're diminishing the level of police service, and why I think it's an austerity measure is because they're conditioning people to accept lowered government services. But that's still not going to really lower the expenses of the city, because these fixed costs are with employee pensions, fringe benefits, and healthcare. Okay, which is not coincidental. Not coincidentally, they are targeting the healthcare, and they've been doing that since the Eric Adams administration.
Oh, Mullen, I think you're spot on, right? Because one key element when it comes to austerity measures is cutting spending, right? Especially when it comes to hires, right? Any government hires. And you could say on a local level, you could consider the NYPD a government hire. So I think you're spot on when you say it's an austerity measure. I also think that if we look at Eric Adams, his tenure, and you look at Zohran Mamdani in the short amount of time, we see parallels. And to me, it appears they cut from the same cloth. I mean, we've told you that when you're voting for Eric Adams or you're voting for Zohran Mamdani or Andrew Cuomo, you're getting the same thing. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's almost like, like a deck of cards. They show you a card. Here's a hat trick. Here's a trick. Here's the Joker. They're all the same. And the reality is Eric Adams told you, I think it was 2000. If we look back, I think it was 2022 or 2023 when they started to have the start of the mass exodus. And he said he wasn't worried about it. He wasn't concerned. It was an opportunity to diversify the police department. And ultimately, what I think it's about, it's more of an opportunity to move into more artificial intelligence and eventually robotics when it comes to the NYPD. I think a lot of the reason they're not concerned with recruitment is I think that's where a majority of the police department is going to move into artificial intelligence and robotics. This cover of diversity allows masking to move slowly artificial intelligence and robotics to replace the police department. Also, we've been told that there has to be we have to short manpower, short hires, but yet the plan has not been halted yet for this Department of Community Safety, where we're going to have social workers. So who's going to pay for that? What is going to be that salary amount? What is going to be that deficit there? Also, at this point, I'd like to know if Zohran Mamdani is going to seek any federal grant money for the NYPD. The federal grant money is really important when it comes to the NYPD. On an average each year, the NYPD gets about 150 to 200 million a year just from FEMA. Now, technically, you're not supposed to use that for patrol services. Excuse me, it's supposed to be used for counterterrorism, domestic threats, things like that. But still,
on booty booty.
What's that?
On duty booty.
Exactly. I was getting to that. But we know in the past it has been utilized for other things, right? You could easily say that something is a counterterrorism act, or use it at one police plaza, like you said, which we did. But there's no doubt about it. The bottom line is Eric Adams and Zohran Mamdani are cut from the same cloth. The only difference is cops got super blinded by Eric Adams, in my opinion, because they would do it all the time. They thought it was amazing. They got a contract, but they forget it was 6 years that they didn't have a contract, and the contract had to come to a close anyway. So ultimately, they're all cut from the same cloth. They're following the same template. It's the same page. I think that Zohran Mamdani had this plan all along. There's no doubt about it. But I'm curious at this point, where is he moving forward with these social services? If we're cutting potential hires, where are you cutting when it comes to these social services moving forward? Because in my opinion, that's actually going to be more expensive than NYPD attrition, because we're talking about new apparatus that has to be There has to be a plan in place of how that's going to operate. There has to be training. There has to be an apparatus of just overseeing what this is going to look like, right? The actual research of what a department of community safety is actually going to look like, how this is going to play out. So just the training and the research alone is going to be a cost beyond hiring new police officers. This is just no surprise. And that's why, Mom, I agree with you. I think these austerity measures, and as I said, a huge austerity measure comes to cutting spending when it comes to government hires. And the NYPD on a local level is a government hire.
Yeah, I forgot about the FEMA money for on-duty booty. That's important. We can't cut that. We can't cut that program.
That's important, dude. That's number one.
We need that. We need that. But but like, look. So the thing is, he already laid out that like he's not going to cut any social services at all. What he's going to do is he's going to Kathy Hochul's either going to raise taxes on the rich or he's going to raise taxes on you. He told us already. He has no plan to cut social services. They never will. Why? Because a lot of their funding comes by way of that grift. A lot of their donations comes by way of that grift, right? A lot of not-for-profits making money, a lot of NGOs making money, and those NGOs are what gets you elected in New York City, And so we had pointed out last show, we had pointed out on Wednesday that, basically it's a slow trickle. It's not a straight defund the police. It's we're going to keep the NYPD budget flat while every other budget increases. We know that our headcount's going to continue to go down. So by keeping the budget flat, technically, we're going to start to chip off a little bit of money there. They stripped the capital budget of the NYPD out, so we have no plan on upgrading any of these facilities. That's probably the biggest issue for every progressive in city council, right? All they care about is where cops park their off-duty cars. That's all they care about. They don't care about anything else in New York City. Crime doesn't exist. So they basically stripped that budget, right? They don't care. They'll have cops working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Cops will get the same amount of overtime. And when you total Zohran Mamdani's 4 years that they did in Eric Adams, because it's not going to be because he cares about you. It's going to be because of complete mismanagement and complete incompetence and the fact that you work in a diminished police department. It's not because they care about your pension numbers. So you guys will continue to get exorbitant pensions because of that. Will there be times when he cuts and there'll be drastic cuts? Yeah. But like I know, those cuts always come back. Say they cut the overtime this month. Yeah, you'll get some retirees. Guys will leave. Guys with over 20 will leave. But guess what? By summertime, you'll all be out 7 days a week complaining that you wish you had a day off and you wish you took more summer picks or you wish you had more vacation time for you younger guys. That is the cycle that's happened throughout de Blasio, happened throughout Adams, and will continue under Zohran Mamdani. So again, I look at his budget. I don't see anything different, right? Here we go again. Eric Adams' first budget as New York City mayor. What does he do? Leaves police funding flat. 2/17/2022, right? It's the same thing. It's the same grift. This is what it is. They will not cut social services. They'll never do it. And the thing is, when you look at that homeless budget, do you think that money's being used effectively? Do you think there's oversight on how that money's getting spent? There hasn't been under de Blasio. There wasn't under Eric Adams. And there sure as hell isn't going to be under Zohran Mamdani. We told you, I kept pointing out because everybody kept going back to de Blasio and his wife with the Thrive. Where's the $876 million or whatever it was? And I'm like, where was it? I was like, that's a great question. The mayor in New York City right now, Eric Adams, should be concerned with that. But he was so concerned that he gave the program $40 million more and he renamed the program. That's what he did when he first stepped into office. He didn't say, well, hey, where'd that money go? No, he's like, no, let me give it more money. What do you think Zohran Mamdani's doing? He's giving it more money. It's literally the same path because, we sit here and we think that there's much of a difference between these politicians, especially politicians on the Democratic line. Democrats are the Tammany Hall of the 1800s. I mean, it never left New York City. When you become the mayor in New York City under the Democratic line, you're not pushing your what you say you're going to do. You're going to push what you're told to do. And clearly there is an agenda, and there's been an agenda at play for the last 15 years in the city. So here it is. I mean, and it's going to continue in the next 4 years.
John, I thought he's an independent.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Eric Adams, he's an independent now. It's funny because he's attacking. It's funny because if you look at his tweet today, this morning, he's attacking Mamdani for attacking him over the library cuts. And all I said is, hey, it's the same. He's following your playbook, bro. That's all it is. You should be flattered. Should be flattered. That's what it is. And he ran on Mamdani's campaign. Mamdani's Department of Community Safety was the brainchild of Eric Adams and Bill de Blasio. Eric Adams told you he's going to have civilians policing protests. He's going to have civilians policing parades. He's going to have mental health people responding to EDPs. I mean, what does that sound like to you? It's the Department of Community Safety. What does it really sound like? Marlon spelled it out for you months and months ago. What is it really? It's a diminished police department that costs the city a lot less money, and it's cops without guns. That's what it is. And that's the path the Democrats want to go down. And that's the path we're going down. And because I sit here and we're the only people that point this out, I have to say that the Republicans want it too. The Nicole Malliotakises, the Joe Borellis, the Anthony, whatever the hell your name is. All of you are like, you all see this. You're not dumb. You pay attention to politics. I mean, you're probably much smarter than we are. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, and by the way, it's not just New York City that wants to civilianize aspects of its police department either, because there is a push for other cities like Baltimore and Chicago to civilianize different aspects of policing, including in Baltimore, where they want to hire civilian investigative specialists, okay, to work on cold cases, property crimes, and internal affairs. So it's not just New York. And not coincidentally, it's happening in cities that all have the same issue, right? It's Nin, it's not that. Okay, Nin is saying, yeah, Marlon, it's called democracy. Nin, you're that's shallow thinking. Okay, it's called budget issues. Okay, they all have budget problems, and the budget problems are they're trying to find ways to pay for policing services, but to do it at a cheaper rate and not have to pay pensions and healthcare. Okay. And again, I'm going to refer back to the attacks that have gone on retiree healthcare right now. And I'm going to bring up what happened to those of us who were forced off the job because of the scamdemic mandate. Okay. I said it when it happened years ago, and I've been saying it since. That was an austerity measure because they knew the budget problems were coming. Okay, it's been talked about by many people in the finance and economics field for years that unfunded liabilities, okay, are a massive problem, not just to the country but to cities. And the cities knew that they were coming to a crisis, so they took measures beforehand to try and get down those fixed costs. And Nassau County is doing that right now they're proposing an early retirement plan for cops, and I believe they're losing between 200 and 300 cops from it. It's all because they want to get payroll costs down. And again, I'm going to bring up this chart in Mamdani's preliminary financial plan, right? You see that the part that's circled there is administration of justice, right? This is correction, costs them $11 billion, $11.8 billion. The courts, 1.2, and police. Well, this is their projections, how much they plan to allocate to, right? And less than $1 billion for the NYPD. Good luck on that with the NYPD, because as we talked about before, when you get rid of experience, right? When you get rid of efficiency, it's going to cost you. You're going to save it up front, but it's going to cost you down the road. Okay. But you can see it's $13.8 billion, right? They can't lower the cost to the Department of Education because the DOE, they vote Democrat. They don't want to get rid of make some efficiencies in the social services because, again, a lot of those people that the money is going to are part of the Democrat voting bloc. And if not, they're part of NGOs, community groups who are all part of the progressive industrial complex. So they don't want to touch that. Okay. So that leaves very few options, especially when you have to deal with the 30%, which are for, pensions and all that. Right. So what do? You're going to have to lower the level of policing services and the lower the costs of administering justice. Okay. But I saw a comment in the chat from the chief. That's Chief Marino, who did who's been doing a fantastic job of covering for for the executives on the executive perspective, and in the 10-foot heaven, covering for Pete. So the chief said that it's not an austerity, it's a philosophical shift, and it's bad. And I'm going to agree with you, and also kind of disagree. I'm going to say it's not just a philosophical shift. It's that for the foot soldiers and for the people on the bottom who are in the low information bubble. But the people at the top who are manipulating things, it's an austerity measure. It's just disguised as a social cause, because this is how governments and wealthy and these people at the top, and corporations too, this is how they emotionally manipulate you into things. They are appealing to your human empathy, and by doing so, they're convincing the people on the bottom that this is a worthy social cause to get involved into and to work on their behalf. But at the top, they don't care about these social causes. Again, the people at the top, they're not right or left. They're green. They're money. They don't care who's at the bottom. They at the top, they're all partying together, smoozing together, making deals together, and it doesn't matter what you're, a Republican or Democrat. That's only the surface level for the low information people at the bottom.
Racist, you racist. You're right though. Shout out to Mike Marino, man, who's been doing a hell of a job stepping in the Finest Unfiltered, putting on some great shows. Mike, we appreciate it, brother, and we definitely appreciate you being live in the chat. Thank you for being so active. Great job on those shows. Yeah, outstanding. So it's interesting. We're talking about austerity measures and also emotion, right? You said it's a lot of it's emotionally driven. So I believe that those austerity measures have been in place since 2020, since the aftermath of George Floyd, and they used people's emotions to defund the police with austerity measures, right? People are anti-police, a lot of the anti-police rhetoric. So it makes it a lot easier to defund the police, because a lot of people are emotionally driven. They're not looking at it from a budget perspective or from an economic analyst. They're looking at it from a point of emotion, right? People that have an anti-police sentiment, a lot of bias towards the police, so they use that rhetoric to drive this real agenda. Now, I want to say I think that John is absolutely right. John, when you refer to this overtime issue, no matter what, whether it's Eric Adams or former Mayor Bill de Blasio, or now Zohran Mamdani. And Zohran Mamdani is going to find out real quick, and I'm sure he knows already. When the summer hits, he's going to have no choice to dish out mass amount of overtime. So in the end, these budget cuts actually make it worse, and there ends up being a lot more spending, because overtime is a lot more costly. So having attrition actually leads to more spending because of the amount of overtime that will be necessary, whether he likes it or not. And even if he retracts from the police department, uses a Department of Community Safety, which we don't even know what that's going to look like, but even that's going to have to be utilized, because once the warm months start to come, things start to develop real quickly. New York City harbors a lot of crews, gangs. We have illegal military age males. They're in habitat right now because it's so cold, but once it's warm out, things start to come out. Potential for violence. People have been out harboring at home. They want, it's a chance to get out. So the police department will have to spend a lot more on overtime than this attrition problem that we have. So I do agree with you, Paul, and I think it's an austerity measure. I think that, but they utilize that emotion to drive that agenda. But ultimately, in my opinion, what this really comes down to is these austerity measures and driving people by emotion. I think eventually is to move to AI and robotics. I think there's a lot of private contracts to that. I think that even when I listen to Jessica Tisch, her state of the NYPD address for 2026, she now mentions getting a new taser. I'm sure that taser is also attached to another private contract, and eventually that will be attached to some AI and robotics also. So ultimately, I think this is going to come down to AI and robotics. I think that's really where this is going to, even when the Department of Community Safety, because if the Department of Community Safety fails, well, they could say, we don't want to utilize the police, right? Right, this idea that the police have to be boxed into a specific area. The police, well, we often hear from Zohran Mamdani, is the police have to do their job. Well, and the good question is, well, what is the job? What is the job of the police department? Because one thing we know, the time that we came on, the police department was you were your utility man, right? You were in everything, right? You were a referee. You married people, you divorced people on the same day. But now they're saying, well, the police department should focus on their job, and they want to give you this idea that they should only focus on like the most evil people out there, the highest crime. So what are these social services going to do? Because we all know that emotionally disturbed persons is probably one of the biggest elements in policing, right? Because good people have bad days, and bad people have bad days also. So ultimately, I think this comes down to moving towards AI and robotics. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So look, I know it's early in the month. It's only the 20th, but I think we should name in viewer of the month, because he just, congratulations. Then I think we're all in agreement.
Contributed too. He's contributing some valuable information, John.
You surpassed Juju this month. Congratulations. First time for you, brother. We definitely got to get back on that taser at some point, though, because I gotta tell you, I got a lot of negative reviews about the new taser, the X10, I believe it is.
X10, yeah.
What do we use currently? It's like the X26 or something, right? Am I all? Yeah, 26. So I got a couple of complaints about that. So in another show, we'll get back to that. We'll cover that. But Raheem had said, why are there only two options? And Raheem, they're not. I mean, but that's what he's giving you. He's basically giving you an ultimatum. There's not only two options. The option is there to go through and see where we're wasting money and where money could be better utilized and where we could chop fat. And believe me, there's billions of dollars that could be saved in that budget, but that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. So again, people like, oh, I know you guys don't like Adams. Look, I don't not like Adams. I don't give a shit about Adams. When they came at us personally and made it personal, that's when it got personal for us. But overall, when we're talking about policy, there's nothing about liking or disliking someone that matters at all. Personally, think Eric Adams is a pretty funny guy, right? I'd like to know his connections to the person that threatened our kids and all of the cops that thought they were going to bully and intimidate us. Like that I'd like to know. I mean, yeah, does that anger me? Is that personal? Yeah. But when I'm talking policy, there's nothing personal about it. We're just talking policy, and so same thing. I have zero issue with Zohran Mamdani. Zero personal issue. Zero. There's nothing that I don't like him about, or I just don't agree with him on politically at all. I think he's wrong, and so, but when we talk about Adams' policy, again, we're talking about Bill de Blasio's policy, and we're literally showing you the future, right? We're literally showing you the future. If he doesn't pass the tax cuts, which I believe that either way, rich people, businesses will get taxed, and you will get taxed eventually. That'll all come to fruition. You'll see the same cycle. Overtime's getting cut, budget cuts. It's going to say Zohran Mamdani unveils sweeping New York City budget cuts. He's not going to blame the migrant crisis. What's he going to blame? He's going to blame the budget deficit. He's going to blame Adams. It's going to be the same thing that's going to come up. This is going to happen, right? And then what's going to happen? Crime's going to skyrocket. Now, I don't know. Eric Adams didn't have a billionaire heiress he didn't have a billionaire heiress to push back at what's actually occurring in New York City and to actually stop the truth from being reported. So it might take a little longer, but what happened is his approval rating sunk because again, I don't remember if you remember at that time, but crime was literally spiking the same way it is now, but it was actually being reported in the media, right? So, and then what did he do? He pulled back. He reversed the budget cuts to the NYPD in November. Why'd he do that? Because public perception was insane. At the time, what were we all saying? We're like, why do you have to cut those two services? We're saying the same exact thing that we're saying now. Why is that where you're going? Why can't you look at all of the grift around? You know, someone said here that there's 1.47 billion for illegal services for illegal immigration, right? Or migrants, if you want to call it. There's a lot more than that in that budget. So again, we showed you early on last January that we're spending $1 billion a year going to the New York City Hotel Owners Association. And what that's doing is just to house illegals inside of hotels and other properties. And that's just for the hotels. We don't know all the other ways that through non-for-profits that people are being housed, right? We don't know the grift that's happening there. So there is not 1.47 billion. There is literally billions of dollars. So Adams, now what does he do when he doesn't do these budget cuts, right? Doesn't look anywhere else. And even if he would have did these budget cuts, it wouldn't have made a dent in the deficit. Wouldn't have made a dent because that's not where the real grift is. That's not where the real money is. You're going to, when you go to the NYPD, and I don't mean to leave FDNY out of this because they are a very vital agency in New York City when it comes to EMS, when it comes to firefighting, FDNY is up there. But there is no agency, there is not one agency that is on par with the NYPD as far as how heavily relied on they are. The NYPD by far is the most heavily relied on agency in New York City and will always be. Regardless if your mayor is a communist, if your mayor is a socialist, if your mayor is a Democrat, if your mayor is a Republican, it doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't matter. And when crime starts to skyrocket and when the media can no longer cover up the truth, or a certain police commissioner walks out the door and then the truth actually starts getting reported again, you'll see exactly this. Zohran Mamdani is going to reverse the budget. And then what's he going to do when it comes around election time? When it comes around election time, or he knows that he has no shot of winning, he's going to look to, this is the time when Eric Adams knew he had no shot of winning. He was already out of the race, right? November 3rd. He's not even in the race anymore. What does he say? I'm going to bring the headcount to 40,000 officers. He was never bringing the headcount to 40,000 officers, people. It was never happening. It was a lie. I'm sorry. I hate to tell you it. So, yeah, we did title it that the plans were canceled to hire 5,000. But if Eric Adams say he would have won, you would have never got that 5,000. If Andrew Cuomo would have won, you would have never got that 5,000. And even if you did hire 5,000, you're keeping up at attrition. You're not keeping up at attrition. You're still lowering the headcount of the NYPD. Like we told you when Cuomo was saying, I'm going to hire 7,000. This guy's saying, I'm going to hire 6,000. It's like, all right, yeah. You're going to hire nobody, bro, because you're not fixing any of the internal problems. And even if you do, all you're doing is you're barely keeping up with attrition, and the headcount of the NYPD continues to lower. So this is the game, people. This is the future. This is what it is. This isn't shocking to anyone. I know Fox News is reporting this as shocking. Newsmax, the Post, shocking. I can't believe what Zohran Mamdani is doing. Zohran Mamdani is following the same path as the last two mayors, literally.
Yeah. In regards to why, I agree with John that it's still not enough because keep in mind, New York City's population right now is at 8.3 million. And we were all, in fact, we've lost people since the scamdemic. We've lost like 500,000 people. And we were up to 8.8. But anyway, we're down to 8.3 million people. And we have the amount of cops as the early 90s, which was just over 7 million people, 7.3. So we have a million more people than then, but we still have the same amount of cops. Okay. And one of the problems with what's going on now is that they want to do two divergent things at the same time. Okay. I mentioned this last time, right? The cost of administrating justice, right? They want to, they want to have a no consequences society, right? They don't want incarceration, right? Because again, it costs them money, and also, Rikers Island will bring in them $12 billion if they could actually manage to shut it down, and then sell it off to these billionaire developers, right? Right. So they want no incarceration, but at the same time, they don't want cops because they can't afford the pensions. Okay. So you want two things. You want a no consequence society, which is inevitably creates a recidivism problem, right? And at the same time, you don't want cops on the street. You can't afford the cops on the street. So it's two divergent things all at the same time, and it's not going to work, right? But I saw a comment from Lily, a good friend of the podcast. She says that Hochul wants to raise taxes after the election. That is the rumor, and this is probably the first and only time I'm going to bring up WABC on here, because I listened to the if you can, John, just get the comment off.
Sorry.
I think I got rid of it. Thank you. So I listened to the Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the City Council on WABC. So now my feed on Twitter is being filled with all sorts of WABC stuff. Otherwise you'd never see WABC here, by the way. But they're reporting on it too, that the rumor is that Kathy Hochul is just waiting after the election for her in order to raise taxes. Okay. And again, this goes back to the fact that they're in such a they're between a rock and a hard place. Okay. And these people aren't smart enough to think of the alternate solutions. Okay. The alternate solutions are, first of all, they're inconvenient to their political ambitions, because those people vote for them. And these people aren't the best people, in government. We talk about the cacistocracy and how you're getting the most incompetent people to rule you. And the fact is that they're not smart enough to realize that there are many options besides this, and to go down those roads. So now they're in between a rock and a hard place. And it seems more than likely that Kathy Hochul is just waiting for the smoke to settle down before she picks the position that is going to be very unpopular. One last thing. Last go around, Eric mentioned that about robotics, and I think I agree with him 100%. And I think they don't care about. They know that if you get rid of cops and experienced cops, it's going to cost you down the road. But they don't care about it, because what we see government likes to do is kick the can down the road. And I think they'll kick the can down the road as much as they can, while behind the scenes they'll be begging the feds for money to plug their budget. And they're going to, it's kicking the can down the road and praying that something that either Wall Street will have a great year, or the feds will kick in the money to plug their budget. And if not, they hope to kick the can down the road long enough where robotics and AI will come in and plug the service gaps.
Well, they're already showing you that, right? They're showing you that we've been told this idea even throughout the Eric Adams administration, that drones are the new technology at the frontier for policing, right? So ultimately, drones. Also, we told the DFR, right? Drones First Responder Program. So we're being told already that artificial robotics is already replacing the police department. That drones would be the apparatus and we even done several episodes talking about the human element of how important it is to policing. But I think that's really where they're going. I think all this agenda leads down to artificial intelligence and robotics, because everyone makes money from it. And what they also want you to believe, when I say they, that's the politicians, Zohran Mamdani, Eric Adams, no difference, Jessica Tisch. is they want you to believe that policing is just a numbers game, right? That so what they're telling you, and this is the reality, there's really no strategy that's implemented right now for policing. And it's just a numbers game. They're telling you that there's 35,000 cops, which I don't think there's even near 30,000. But they're telling you it's 35,000 cops, and they'll get you to 40,000. So ultimately, they're telling you it's just a numbers game. That's what's important is the number of cops that are out there for doing policing. So, but if we actually dive into it, there was never an intention to get the head count up, because even when Eric Adams offered 5,000, this was supposed to be a trickling effect. It wasn't going to be 5,000 in one shot. And it's even posted in the article, in that post article, that there would be an increase over time. And then eventually you would get those 5,000 cops by July of 2028. But what people don't realize is by July of 2028, how many more cops will you lose? And not just veteran cops that we're losing, it's new cops, right? New cops are coming to the NYPD for a short stint. John and I often, and Marlon, we often tell you about the recruitment problem and the retention problem in the NYPD. We speak to cops on a constant basis, and most cops are not getting on the job and thinking about that 20-year retirement. They're getting on the job and they're thinking, well, how long do I want to stay here before I find something better, before I find another agency or even another profession? So they want you to believe it's just a numbers game so they can move to AI and robotics, and they're already doing it by telling you that drones can replace the human element, that drones are the first responders, that drones can be those AI and robotics to replace the police department. So Smith makes a great point here. My new department has no unions and everyone is tighter at even ranks. So where are the unions in all this? That's what, he said you're treated as one. And where are the unions in all this to say, why isn't anyone focusing on morale? You're attacking the police department, saying you're going to hire new cops or you're not going to hire new cops. And we're coming out with this Department of Community Safety saying, well, the cops are going to be able to focus on their job. So the union should be asking then what is their job? What exactly will they be doing? And if that's the case, that they have a specific spot, don't expect the NYPD to do more. And we have to stop with this idea of doing more with less and putting more emphasis on the back of cops. It's not fair. Cops deserve better, and they deserve to be treated better. And as John said earlier, it's the most important apparatus in New York City. Fire department, Department of Education, sanitation, these are very important agencies. They are, but there's no doubt about it that the NYPD is at the top of that hierarchy and carries all hats.
It touches everything. It's the most relied on agency in New York City, hands down. Whether you hate the police or not, when you're the mayor in New York City, you're going to lean on them. It's that simple, because anything that happens, a natural disaster, something in a school, anything you could think of. Problem with infrastructure. Who's there? NYPD, NYPD, NYPD. Riot, protest, whatever. Doesn't matter. Shooting, whatever you could think of. It doesn't matter. You're there. There's a depression going on. Stock market crashes. Guess who you're relying on? The police. Stock market's doing well. Guess who you're relying on? The police. They literally touch everything. I'm getting abused in the comments about the way I say library. What's wrong? That's how you say it. There was just a study out that said New Yorkers are losing their accent. You guys are trying to get me to change the way I talk. People do it here in Florida. They're try to tell me what the name of something is, and I'm like, this is how I say it. I'm not changing my way I say something because you don't like the way it's pronounced.
John, actually, you're working smarter than harder. You're skipping a letter and you just get right to the point. Who needs a library when you have a library?
Library people, all right? Library.
Did they say that? Wait, I gotta see that study. Did they really say that New Yorkers are losing their accent?
Yeah, that the New York accent is it's losing. It's dwindling out of society.
I gotta see that. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm holding it strong though, baby. Library for life. So here's the other thing, right? We're talking about what could be cut. Clearly, our stance on diversity, equity, inclusion. We think that not only does it violate equal opportunity law, it's divisive, and then at the same point, it's completely unnecessary. So Zohran Mamdani, $5.6 million for an office of racial equity. It's going to be a lot more than that, right? $4.6 million on a commission for racial equity. $835,000 on a commission for gender equity. $118,000 plus for an FDNY Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer. $301,000 for 3 FDNY civilian chief diversity inclusion officers, $260,000 for Department of Education chief diversity officer. So you're like, why is that necessary? So when you look at it, right, like what's ultimately the goal of when they say they're going to diversify? What is it? Really, let's be honest. What they're saying is they want less white people. They want more people of color, right? Like that's what all of this money. There's millions and millions of dollars to put that out there. So Jason Curtis Anderson Lee, I don't know if you guys know him. He recently put out a post. And what he said is that out of 364,000 New York City employees, 31% are white. 364,000, 31% of those employees are white. Why are we still, again, I kept asking, Nin, maybe you can answer, what's the goal of diversity, equity, inclusion? When do we achieve it? Obviously, whites who are compromised of so many ethnicities, it's not even funny, right? All of the ethnicities, almost nearly every ethnicity in New York City is compromised. You're white. Asian people, you're moving there too. Don't think you're not. You're coming. They're gonna kick you out of that Pacific Islander part and kick you over.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard to the world of privilege.
Yeah, they're too much overachievers. So that is coming.
Yeah, and light Hispanics, they're in purgatory too.
Oh, white Hispanics too. You guys are already there. And female Hispanics are already white, by the way. Already, they don't want. There's too many of you. You make too many babies. We can't have you. You kick them over to white.
If you're white and gay, are you okay though? I think you're good to go though. You cross.
No, you're not. You just hate yourself. You hate yourself. You hate your skin color. So, I hate the color of my skin. So, 31%. So why are we still spending millions of dollars to diversify? Have we not reached it? I recently purchased a book, Professional Criminals of America. It was written by NYPD Inspector Thomas Burns, known as the Godfather of detectives. Really interesting character. I'll get into him one day at some point. But I looked through the book. I was like, I want to see the diversity. I want to see, because the gang database is racist. I want to see what's the diversity in this Professional Criminals of America. There is not one black person. There is not one Hispanic person. There is not one person of color in this book at all. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's weird. It must be systemically racist, like the gang database.
They're gonna burn that book now, John.
Or maybe in 1860, those were just the criminals. They were all of German descent, of Irish descent, of Italian descent, of Jewish descent. They were from wherever the immigration was from at that point, at that moment in time. And they came here poor. And traditionally, we know that poverty tends to lean towards more crime, especially severe poverty. And, this is ridiculous to me. Huge waste of money, but we're not going to cut here. We're going to continue to double down on these divisive, racist. And I thought Trump was getting rid of DEI. I thought it was gone. I thought all these programs were going to be illegal. I thought anyone that had this wasn't going to get federal funding, but I guess not. I guess, you know what? Zohran Mamdani said he's a nice guy and he likes him. He went to the White House one day. So we'll just keep the DEI in there,
Yeah, so much for thinking that we would have gotten, again, that a lot of these changes that were promised to us. But again, it goes back to the fact that at the top, remember, they're all having dinner together at the top, okay? It's only you, the pleb, and the peasants on the bottom who still think that you have two political parties, okay? You don't, okay? And so what was I gonna say? I kind of forgot my train of thought here for a second, but
at least your mic's on.
Well,
just keep talking. Look at it. Just keep talking.
Yeah. So those costs again. I just want to go back to this for a quick second. Again, it's 30% of the operating budget is for those fixed costs, right? So the question I'm going to pose to you, chat, is what do you think they're going to do to lower those fixed costs exactly? Again, the employee pensions and the health benefits, okay? Because like John just showed you, they don't want to cut. They obviously don't want to cut the money that goes to their cronies and to the industrial complex. So I'm going to answer my own question next go around, but I'm going to pose that to you now, chat. You need to think of where we're headed to with this technocracy, right? And with all these technologies that they're telling you about and that Eric is mentioning with the AI and all this. Where are they headed to with that?
I think speaking of the chat, Leo Fear. Oh, here is Leo Fearpin. I couldn't see I gotta wear my glasses. Leo Fearpin is saying this is actually spot on. He said, John, you make a good point about white. And he says here, these damn comments. You're Italian. Eric is Jewish. 50 years ago, that was not white. My Italian ancestors were not open with open arms. You're absolutely right. Actually, the Italians at that time were referred to a word, and it started with N, and it wasn't neighbor, and it wasn't nin. So you know what that N word was. And that's what white people, I'm sorry, white people, you're not white, John. That's where Italian people were referred to during those times of poverty. And they were, the N word was utilized towards Italian people. And right, and the Jewish people, you think about the movie Once Upon a Time in America, it was the big criminal element around the Jewish mob. It's not just, it's amazing. So who is white? Who is white in this? Who are these white brothers? It doesn't make any sense. And is the point to diversify to the point that there's no white people left? Is that what it is? Just completely eradicate it? And then are we going to turn the tides? Oh, we need to diversify. Now we're going to seek out white people? Or who are those white people? This is, again, I think this is all cover, this whole diversity thing, because it's going to fall flat in its face. You're going to realize, and they already know it, that DEI means hire people that are not qualified, and they're going to have to revert to AI and robotics. It's big money. It's big money. It's big private contracts. So, John, are you that white guy? What are you? You're Italian? Is Italian white? I don't even know.
Not if he's from Sicily. Aren't your family from Sicily too, John?
Yeah, technically they don't consider us Italian either.
You're from wait, John, aren't you from a town called Macari? You said?
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Funny stuff.
And then, am I right though? They use the N-word. They use the N-word for Italians. Am I right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. They use it for a lot of, they used it for anyone they considered lower class. And that's why the stuff would hear when they talk about property tax, and they're like, well, when they talk about property tax, it annoys me. A lot of these politicians, because they're like, oh, especially the Democrat politicians, they're like, you're going to harm black and brown people. It's like, aren't you going to harm people of lower income? Like everyone, you're going to harm Asians. You're going to hire whites. You're going to hire blacks. You're going to hire Hispanics, right? Like you're going to harm all these people. Like, what are you talking about? So like when we're going to raise property tax by 9.6%, and you're not willing to cut any of this nonsense, because literally, like, my point in bringing in what all that diversity stuff is that it's all like theoretical bullshit. None of like the city didn't get better because of DEI. Black people didn't start getting hired because of DEI. Black people didn't start becoming police chiefs because of DEI. Like, all of it's bullshit. Sorry, women were already cops. Women were already chiefs. I mean, like, we're pretending like it actually, like, it's equal opportunity, and it's not. And all that, and it's junk. It's garbage. It's garbage science. It makes no sense. There's no metrics for it. If anything, if you look at where these policies have been implemented, in my opinion, they've diminished. They've diminished. Those agencies have diminished. You're hiring people based upon their gender or their skin color or their religion instead of their competency level, instead of their qualifications. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. But we got hundreds of millions of dollars to throw at that. And then you look at Jumaane Williams, right? Like, this is Jumaane Williams. This is him. This is him simping for Mamdani now. He wouldn't have did this for Eric Adams. If this was Eric Adams, he'd be throwing shit at him. But, like, he hates Eric Adams. So this is where you see, he's not talking policy. He's talking feelings and emotions. Here he is. Listen what he's got to say.
All right. So we can't play games with the budget. Somebody has to pay. And Governor Hochul can decide who. Will it be the richest people in our city or working class New Yorkers. The law requires the budget to be balanced, and the last mayor managed it so badly that to fix it, we need to climb out of a very deep hole. Now, there are no simple solutions here without raising taxes on the richest of the rich. Now, while some people say different, the real cost of cutting services often leads to spending more down the line. Incarcerating people is more expensive than crime prevention. Emergency response is more expensive than sustained health care. And cycling people through shelters is so much more expensive than putting people in homes. And slashing New Yorkers' essential services now is something we would all be paying for years later. Now, without raising taxes on the rich, the mayor says property taxes would have to be raised. And that would be devastating to New Yorkers' homeowners, especially in Black and brown communities. New York's property tax system is broken, inequitable, and it has been for many years. So we have to fix it, not raise rates across the board. I know this administration is pushing for those reforms, and I do appreciate them grappling with a difficult and honest conversation rather than avoiding it, which has happened in other administrations. The good news is that's just the preliminary budget. It'll go through hours of hearings and revisions before the executive budget later this spring, and long before a final budget is approved this summer. But we have to start speaking out and organizing now to push Albany to act. We cannot raid the savings of low-income and middle-class New Yorkers to insulate the wealthiest people and corporations in our city. So far, Governor Hochul has refused to even consider raising taxes on the richest, wealthiest folks in New York. But working families can't afford us not to.
So again, you want to talk about honesty? That's not an honest conversation. Those are complete lies, what you're hearing. What he's telling you is somebody's got to pay for all our bullshit. We're not willing to cut anything other than police services. We're not willing to cut anything else. Everything else is going to stay, and somebody's paying for it. It's either the rich and the wealthy, or it's the middle class and the poor. And, you know, Marlon said it here. Kathy Hochul was against congestion pricing. Remember, she stopped it. Remember, she stopped it before the election? What happened after the election? Oh, that's right. You're paying congestion pricing, right? It's going to spread throughout New York City. Donald Trump was going to stop it, though, right? He was going to cut federal funding. Yeah, but it's still going through. Kathy Hochul said, no, you're not. And she kept going through it. And now, same thing. Like, you're getting both of those options. You're getting A and B, and the spending is going to continue. So it's just more stupidity. And, you know, no one's paying attention to what's happening. We're just arguing over the dumb talking points that they're giving us. And, you know, I'm telling you, like this, I'm telling you, our forefathers are rolling in their graves. They've been since 2020, but now they're really rolling in their graves. They're like, you people are destined for a master. You're destined for poverty. You're destined for poverty. This entire country, the middle class and the poor, are being wiped out. They're being literally ridden into indentured servitude, slavery.
Yeah. Man, so by the way, Jumani is from he's actually from my birth country, by the way. And on behalf of Grenada, I'd like to apologize to America for Jumani. You know? We don't know how he got off the boat, you know, but yeah, we're sorry. But yeah, we talk about how much of this is austerity, right? And how much they're trying to convince the people that to being okay with things that are inherently against their long-term self-interest. And the thing is, right now, the push is clearly from members of city council and from people like Jumani. You know, again, does anybody know actually what Jumani does for a living? You know, how much would the city save if we just got rid of that position, right?
Millions, like that.
Yeah,
easy, like 8 million. Get rid of him and his whole staff.
Yeah,
he's a paid protester.
Yeah, that's why I said on Monday, Marlon, I would attack the administrative bureaucracy. There's a lot of administrative positions. He's one of them that you have to ask, why do we have this position? What do they do? We have a lot of overlap, a lot of unnecessary jobs. I'm with you.
Yeah. But clearly there's a push from these guys to raise the corporate tax and to tax the wealthy, you know? And the thing is, they're going to convince a lot of the poor people and the people on the low information bubble that this is good for their interests long term, when we know what the rich are going to do is first they're going to they have like they can afford the best lawyers and the best accountants who are going to find loopholes for them to take advantage of. And second, if they can't find the loopholes, they're just going to pass the costs on down to those same people on the low information bubble who tend to be on the lower socioeconomic ladder. So again, they're trying to. It's all about convincing you based on emotional arguments to accept your own demise, so to speak. You know, sort of. And by the way, because I went down a couple rabbit holes yesterday, and I got back to the scamdemic, right? And if we talk about if we get to about Jamil Altieri, I'll mention some of those rabbit holes that I went down, right? But I went back to the scamdemic, and I was watching a couple of videos about the scamdemic. And again, think how much they tried to emotionally manipulate you into accepting an experimental procedure back then. Okay, all the emotional arguments. You take it for grandma. Do you want these old people to die? It's all about emotionally manipulating you into accepting something that is not good for you long term. And again, one quick thing, I'm still want you to think about what I said last go around, because I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna talk about it before we finish today.
Listen, I think that we're bringing up mass issues, and it's interesting when we talk about wealth. I think ultimately wealth is relative, also, right? Because Jumaane Williams talking about taxing the rich, but Jumaane Williams, the position that you're in comparison to someone who is in a position of poverty, and you talk about fighting for people that are homeless, you can consider yourself someone who's wealthy in comparison to them, and I really believe that wealth is relevant. Someone that we consider is someone of a richer upper class could be poor in comparison to someone else, right? I mean, everyone's poor in comparison to Jessica Tisch, right? So Jessica Tisch, I mean, does Jessica Tisch family want to be taxed? So ultimately, wealth is relevance, and poverty is also relevant. Also, I believe that there's all levels to this. I just think that ultimately, I think the real agenda is what we've been saying here, right? It comes down to what Marlon said, austerity, and it comes down to AI and robotics. And how do you drive an agenda? Is by getting to the ideology of people, right? And you have to get them emotionally driven. And that's the same. This is on the same parallels of terrorism, right? Because to change an agenda by the use of domestic terrorism or foreign terrorism is to change the ideology of a group or an ideology of a person. And how do you do that? By driving the emotions. And former Mayor Bill de Blasio, former Mayor Eric Adams, and now Zohran Mamdani, the entire Democratic apparatus we've seen from New York City in these past 16 years now, have been a Democratic apparatus that drive people's emotions. And how do you drive people's emotions? By getting to a point where they believe something is not there that actually, or vice versa, something that appears that's not there, and by gaslighting them. So ultimately, that's what we've seen, and it's the same template. We often tell you that Eric Adams' administration was gaslighting you, and so is Zohran Mamdani, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's wild, man. And Mike Marino brings up a point here, and I just want everyone to be aware of this, right? Like, what you're going to hear going forward is this exact argument. Healthcare is a huge drain and probably unsustainable in its current state. The affordable healthcare wasn't so affordable after all. So I just want to say, Mike, you worked your entire life. You got, you got up there now, and God bless you, but you paid your taxes the whole way. You should be getting massages every day for free. Literally. Everybody your age, not saying that you're old, but everybody your age and younger should be getting massages every day for free. Everything you do should be for free. We have billions and billions of dollars to send to the Ukraine, billions and billions of dollars to send to Israel, billions and billions of dollars to waste on diversity, equity, inclusion programs, billions and billions of dollars to go to these NGOs that supposedly helping the homeless, and yet we have more homeless people than ever. Billions and billions of dollars to go to the mentally ill, and yet we have more mentally ill people walking around our streets than ever. That is a complete lie. that whole statement that healthcare is unaffordable. Healthcare is unaffordable in this country, and it's becoming more and more unaffordable because of the policies put in place by both the Democrats and the Republican. Because the grift is that Big Pharma and the hospitals fund their political campaigns, and they shouldn't be allowed to. They shouldn't be allowed to touch anything or make any law when it comes to healthcare or anything like that. They should not be allowed to touch any money. Healthcare, Big Pharma should not be allowed to have lobbyists, should not be allowed to have any of this, right? Because what's happening is they're going to have us believe that. Meanwhile, we have people coming in this country that never worked a day in this country, and they're given top tier healthcare. And you, as someone who has paid into the system, has absolutely none. They're just going to take it from you and still take more money out of your pocket. I totally disagree with that statement. Totally disagree with it, but it's a good statement and it's a good topic to bring up because you're gonna hear it more and more, because as the decisions get harder because of the unsustainable budget, but God forbid we actually manage the budget. Because of that, we have to take more of your essential services away. And that's basically what they do. That's what's happening is they're getting us to, they throw these things out there and then the unions push it out there for them, because the unions, what do? Eric's like, where are the unions? Here they all standing next to Zohran Mamdani, and Eric asks, here you go, sir. Here's your water. Like, that's what they do. They're water boys. That's what they do. They're not
water.
They're not there fighting for you. I guarantee they got a different healthcare plan. I guarantee it. I guarantee they're working for the state. Anybody see Pat Lynch lately? Anybody know what he's doing? Oh, no, I don't know. Anybody? Yeah, no, I don't know. But I guarantee those union heads aren't worried about their healthcare. Top notch, baby. Getting picked back and forth up, chauffeured around when they get sick, right? Not you. So anything else on the budget? I just think the last thing on the budget is that, again, we say how heavily relied on the New York City Police Department, and I don't think anyone disagrees with that, right? People are saying we shouldn't be relying on them that much, but this just came out from Vital City, and I think it's really important to look at. So, we're hearing that crime is at historic lows, right? We're hearing that it's at historic lows. New York's never been safer. Everything's history. And they're focusing on murders and shootings. And, we told you to follow whitecollarfraud.com and go back to his earlier reporting on how murders and shootings were being manipulated. I don't know if you guys done that, but we've broken that down several times. But we're not going to do it here. Let's focus on the minor crimes. Pettit larceny. 2025, the change in 2025 from 2019, right? You ready? Up 18%. Small, pettit larceny. What's pettit larceny? I stole less than $1,000. I stole items less than $1,000, right? Harassment, up 19.8%. What's harassment? Someone's bothering you in the street. Someone's following you. Someone slaps you and there's no injury. Someone spits at you. Someone blocks your path. It's harassment, right? Misdemeanor assault from 2019 to 2025, up 15%. So we're told that you're being safer, but people are getting assaulted 15% higher than they were in 2019. 15% more. The crimes, if you look at it, there were 52,000 assaults in 2019. There's 62,000, almost 63,000 in 2024. 2025, there was about 61,000. So when you look at that, you're like, wow, that's weird. Because we showed you time and time and here again that when they were telling you that felony assaults were down, they were technically telling you, oh, for the week of whatever, felony assaults were down. When you looked at the crimes that they were labeling as misdemeanor assaults, they weren't actually misdemeanors, right? But that's up. Grand larceny, up 10.5%. Grand larceny, I snatched something from your person. Something's over $1,000 I stole. Maybe I didn't take it from a person. Maybe I took it from the store. That's grand larceny. And like we said, a lot of robberies get pushed into the grand larceny, right? That's up since 2019, 10%. 2025, they say that criminal mischief is down 23.7%. Here's where I have I'm going to say that, again, this is a highly misreported stat. It's one, the NYPD really doesn't take reports for this anymore. If you call 911, they're going to tell you to take a report, go online, and file your criminal mischief report. What's criminal mischief? I broke the window to your car. I broke the window to your house. I spray painted on your fence. I spray painted on your house. I spray painted on your business. I spray painted on a school. Criminal mischief. Oh, we don't care about that no more. So just go online, file that report, and absolutely no one's going to investigate it because we're going to close it to patrol, and you're never going to hear anything from the detectives because, hey, we're too busy and we don't have enough people. But everything's fine in the NYPD, and we don't have a hiring problem. So criminal mischief is not down 23.7%. And by the way, petty larceny and grand larceny are much higher than what they're being reported here because, like we've told you, businesses literally stopped calling 911 because they don't want to hear the bullshit anymore because the cops aren't even arresting anyone. So felony assaults from 2019 to 2025, what's the change? It's up 42.8%. But hey, we're at historic lows, people. Don't believe the hype. It's a sequel, Vehicle and traffic laws up 276%. Miscellaneous penal laws up 39.9%. Dangerous drugs up 40%. Offenses against public order and sensibility down 7.5%. Why are those down? Because you watch them day after day. You watch these protests turn illegal. You watch them turn disorderly. You watch them turn violent. You watch them take over roadways. And the last resort, after hours and hours of dealing with this garbage, somebody's issued a summons, or they're not even issued at all. They're just dispersed. So that's why that's down. Highly inaccurate stat. What does this all show you? Crime's not down. Crime is up significantly, like the Finest Unfiltered has been telling you for the last 3 years, regardless of what Jessica Tisch, Eric Adams, or Zohran Mamdani is about to try to tell you.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and we've told you before that they have like no long-term plan, right? And they're between a rock and a hard place. So they're gonna lean heavily on manipulating the facts and perception management going forward. Okay, because again, these people aren't smart enough to think of any ways around the rock and a hard place, and they don't want to make the tough decisions for their ambitions. And the tough decisions would be to scrutinize the DOE, to scrutinize social services, and also to not make stupid decisions like forcing all of you to take an experimental medical procedure. Okay. And to that last part, why is that stupid and completely moronic? Well, it's particularly stupid because this is from Marianne Pizzatola. Okay. And this is from our Substack. I'm going to put a link in the chat so you guys could read it too. But, I criticized her because she I thought she had a myopic view of things, purely looking at it from the angle of retirees when it's a citywide issue. And like I said before, the city forcing us to take the experimental medical procedure and forcing us out if we didn't is an issue for retirees. It's an issue for residents of the city. It's an issue for all of us because it's really a budget issue, okay? And an austerity measure disguised as a mandate, right? But so I criticize her, but I'm going to praise her when it's deserved. And in this case, it very much is because she's on top of the retiree healthcare issues and what the city's been doing. So I'm glad Chief Marino brought up the healthcare, okay? Because the question I posed for you guys last go around about the how they're going to lower the fixed costs, one of those ways ties into healthcare, and it's what they're doing right now, which is what they're doing is they're selling your data to the insurers, right? And I don't know if you could see the part that's highlighted there. Let me read it specifically for you. It the reason why they're selling your health data, but it's to, yeah, I'm sorry if you guys are hearing a loud noise in the background, but the reason why they're selling your health data is so the insurers can create an AI database to match up with your health data and create a risk profile for each person, and for a risk stratification and prediction modeling to see how much your diagnosis and care will cost the insurers. They want to be able to call you or basically target you if they think that you are going to cost them more money in healthcare. So what they want to do is monitor you specifically. So if you're overweight, if you're taking an experimental medical procedure that has adverse health effects on you right now, you're a health risk. You're a risk to the insurers. You're going to cost them more money. Okay. So again, that was a stupid decision on the city, right? But and again, Mariana is telling you right now that they've sold your data. And where is the unions on all of this? Where's the unions in all of this? You hear them talking about it? Nope, silent, right? Now I'm also going to tell you what's coming for you guys, and what's coming has been talked about by the World Economic Forum since the scandemic, and in particular by Klaus Schwab, and it's called the Internet of Bodies. Okay. And what that is going to be is trackers that monitor your health, including things like the wrist watches, like the Apple Watches and all these things, and things that go even further than that. Things like pills, things like health bands, all sorts of health monitoring. And they're going to do it because it's going to be a way of lowering costs to them by specifically targeting those people who cost them more money. Your insurance is going to go up, whereas those people who are healthier cost them less. Their rates are going to go down. Okay. And by selling the data to these insurers, the city is going to use that to mitigate the costs of insuring you. Again, because 30% of the budget is fixed costs, which again, what is it? Around 8.5 billion is fringe benefits in healthcare. Okay. Now the Internet of Bodies, again, I'm going to post the links in the chat, but this particular article comes from the Rand Institute, which is one of those think tanks for technocracy. Okay. So what they're telling you is what's on the way for you guys. Okay. And by the way, I mentioned it a couple episodes ago. Your police commissioner and the Tish family are heavily involved in insurance. Okay. And yes, they also do cover worker insurance.
Well, that's actually a great point. Glad you brought that up, because I think also that ties into a lot of potential crypto, because ultimately what's going to be used for medical is blockchain, right? I think blockchain is the future when it comes to medical. All your medical records are going to be in blockchain, and you could actually sell those because it will be concealed in that actual blockchain. So I definitely actually agree with you. They're going to have to figure out how to bypass HIPAA laws, but I agree with that data could be moved around by means of blockchain, which could ultimately ferment in some other type of crypto. So I think there's a lot of money tied to this. I agree with you. Now, going back to what John said earlier, also talking about crime, I think it's interesting when we look at the crime reporting system, right? The old reporting system was a uniform crime reporting system that local police departments would have to report their crime to the FBI. And now there's a new system. It's been out for a few years now. It's called the National Information-Based Crime Reporting System that police departments have to report their crime stats to. And so what we see through a lot of blue cities throughout the country, and it's not just New York, they're underreporting. And the reason why is they're using the excuse that their system was designed for the old reporting system to the FBI, which is Uniform Crime Reporting System, and they haven't completely transitioned to the National Information Crime Reporting System, that National Information-Based System. So a lot of the crime is being reported late the timing on it, that misclassification, because they're saying that they're not properly staffed and they haven't been trained and their system is not prepared to transpose their crime numbers to this new FBI system. So it's easy to do underreporting, right? The difference with the National Information-Based System is all crimes are supposed to be in that system, even though they only keep record of the 7 majors, but all crime is supposed to be reported to that system. Everything else is supposed to be considered other offenses. So I do believe, and we've seen already, misrepresenting and underreporting and misclassifications of crimes. The problem is it paints it doesn't give you the full picture. It doesn't give you the full picture of what's going on. And then as we move forward, that causes a lot of issues on backtracking and actually solving cases, especially when it comes to patterns. So I think we've been completely gaslit. And it's interesting, right? Jessica Tisch told in the State of the Address how great crime is doing. And yet at the same time, they're having a major problem with violent crimes with youths throughout the entire city of New York City, and also transit crime. We were told how great everything's in transit, and crime is out of control in transit. So the bottom line is they have been misrepresenting and underreporting. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to do with these stats. A lot of these crimes can be blanketed and umbrellaed into something else, right? Robbery is the umbrella for petty larceny, for grand larceny. And same thing when it comes to assaults. These things are very easily manipulated. We've seen it best. I think the best evidence-based information would be what happened in Melba, Queens, right? That incident of just complete arson. You had cars out there racing, but a mass incident of arson, which would be a felony crime. And those were all reported as misdemeanors, and we had showed you on prior episodes. So misrepresenting, underreporting. And if you look throughout these blue cities, especially New York City, one of those excuses is the new National Information-Based Crime Reporting System that these cities have to report to, and they're using the excuses that their information is not prepared because they're not properly staffed and prepared for this new system.
Yeah, there's a young man in the chat, Matt. He says he took the police test, scored a 92. He wants to know how this plan to cut the 5,000 cops is going to affect him. Dude, it's not going to affect you at all. Even if he stalls a class or two, you're getting hired, bro. They cannot keep up with the amount of people that are leaving. So
unless he's white,
don't even worry about it. You scored. Well, he's, all you got to do, as long as you pass the psych, you're good. There's no more physical anymore. So you just got to get past the psych. Keep your mouth shut. Treat them like mushrooms. Keep them in the dark and feed them shit, and that's it. And that's it. I mean, obviously the psych can't be too hard to pass. I mean, I'm still trying to confirm. I got something the other day that I'm like, I hope this dude's not a cop. 27 collars, 12 felonies, listed in 31 DIRs as the offender. I just haven't put it out because I just haven't confirmed it totally. I don't know that he's hired, but supposedly he got a letter, so we're just looking at that. So I wouldn't worry about it at all, dude. As long as you pass the psych, you're hired. Don't.
Yeah, but John, if that guy knows the chief, he's in. If he knows the chief, he's in.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, But I'm just saying, like, for anyone that's looking to come on the police department, this does not affect you at all. Like, this is a game. This is a political talking point. This has nothing to do with anyone getting hired. Even if they stall classes for a month or 6 months, they have no choice. Because as people are leaving right now, when July hits, more people become eligible for retirement. They're going to retire in droves. This is what we've been seeing the last 4 years. It's going to continue under Zohran Mamdani. They're going to just need to keep replacing experienced cops with younger cops. So don't worry about it. Just if you want to get on. And last thing on this is just what residents of New York Democrats are saying. Here they go. Let's go.
The mayor, with the greatest respect, in every campaign speech, in every debate where you engage, we opened our ears to listen. Now today, accept the words echoing from us now. Do your job as mayor and leave our taxes out.
Giving only 2 options. You're saying if we don't tax the rich, then I gotta increase property taxes. We are not a pawn in Southeast Queens. We are not part of your negotiation tactics. Mayor Zohran Mamdani, you are out your goddamn mind.
The mayor, with the greatest respect.
So I mean, that you're hearing this. This is from New York Democrats. These are Democrats. I think James Johnson's running for city council, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll be in contact with them. But you're seeing just like Eric Adams, you're seeing a convergence of the left and the right and the conservatives, and they're like, wait a minute, that's not what you said. That's not what you said. I don't agree with them on most things, but I definitely don't agree with them with anything you're doing. And here you go again. It's the same garbage, So it's funny to watch this continue convergence of we the people who are realizing we're just the pawns in the game. You ain't a Democrat. You ain't a Republican. You're not black. You're not white. You're a sucker. That's how the politicians look at you. That's how the elite looks at you. You're just a worker bee. Nobody cares about you. We need something, we take it from you. We mess up, we take some more from you. It doesn't matter.
Spot on, John. Spot on. This is why they need to keep distracting you. They need you to keep fighting with each other, right, left, pick a side, fight between each other, and not realizing that the puppet masters are above you, like manipulating things that aren't in the interest of anybody that isn't part of the billionaire class. Okay. And again, it's all about distractions. And just to close this out, the latest one is on the way. By the way, guess what, guys? It's aliens. So got to keep you all distracted and not realize that the bigger, not being able to see the bigger picture and how things are hurting you.
I think it's kind of funny, but he makes a good point. Who's this here? Talking about this young man that wants to get on the job. JK. These YouTube names are all messed up. JKWH2KD, whatever. Says, remember when a 92 was borderline? Yeah, it's amazing how things have changed, though. You're right. I mean, there was a time where you took the test and you were fighting to get 100 or you needed more with the resident points, and because it was so competitive to get in the NYPD. Now, I'm not knocking your score, young man, that's trying to get on this job. But it's interesting how much more competitive it was. And now we've lost that competition. And unfortunately, because of that, we're not getting the most qualified members of the NYPD. Obviously, with DEI and all these other aspects that we show you that affected the quality of what we're getting in the NYPD. So in reality, well, whether we get listen, it would be great to get 5,000 new cops. But if we don't get it, doesn't really change anything at this point. We lost a veteran apparatus. I do believe in quality over quantity, which to me is far more important. I think we really lost it. And to have a quality organization, especially a police department, you need a veteran apparatus that can pass the torch. You need people. Well, you need people that are there that could really teach the young. And I don't mean young in age, just young police officers who are inexperienced but less than 5 years on the job to really learn how to properly do calls for service, how to properly do patrol, how to do intrusive police work. And we lost that. And we lost a big part of it during the tenure of former Mayor Bill de Blasio. And I often say, we talk about this Department of Community Safety, and it was already here. It was already here, just in a different form. And that was the Neighborhood Coordination Officer Program in the NYPD. Those were police officers, but they were taught to be community safety activists while in uniform. Some of them were legit cops that, went to that program because they were promised a detective shield. But a lot of the brand new cops in the NYPD that worked their entire careers as the Neighborhood Coordination Officer Program were there as community safety activists. They were there as social workers, and they never really understood what it is to become a cop. And they didn't really work doing intrusive police work. It was, go out to a community game, hug a kid, great gestures, nice suggestions, but not police work.
Yeah. So what did we learn here today, people? We learned the word is library. All right. That's what we learned.
Say that 3 times, Sean. Come on, library.
Don't forget about it. We got to fight for these libraries. All right.
Library.
That's what we learned. All right. So next topic. So
no one's going to say water anymore?
So this dude's been getting a lot of backlash, and I'm not one way or the other about it. I just find it funny what people take to get mad out about. So former lieutenant out of Internal Affairs Bureau Group 54, Shamsul Haq, He's looking to be the first Bangladeshi American to serve in the state legislature. He's running for state assembly, but he's running to support Mamdani's agenda, right? He wants more social services, less policing. He wants to tax the rich. That's why he's running. He's running to be part of the state assembly. So people are up in arms about this NYPD, and I'm like, I don't get it. To me, I don't get it. Like, you don't think that Jessica Tisch is supporting Mamdani's agenda? You don't think that Mike LaPetri is supporting Mamdani's agenda? It's only if this guy just comes out and openly admits it instead of trying to hide behind his shield and his rank and, I'm just doing this because I have to. Like, they're pushing the same garbage. When they're sitting there and telling you crime's down, what they're telling you is defunding the police is working. They're telling you that more money into social services is working, and this is the path for public safety. So they're literally lying to your face. So I actually respect Hawk way more because he's come out and he's being honest about his take rather than I respect Mike LaPetri or anybody that's in appointed management at this point, including anyone elected into the unions, into the hierarchy of the unions. I respect Hawk way more than I respect all of them because they pushed the Blasio agenda, they pushed the Adams agenda, and now they're pushing the Mamdani agenda because, they are the water boys for Zohran Mamdani. Hawk's just openly admitting to it. I mean, look, Hawk, you're welcome to come on here, dude. We're going to ask you the questions, right? Because I'm curious why you believe in taxing the rich. I'm curious what your thoughts are, what's wrong with the New York City Police Department, and what social services you think actually work. What are these proven public safety strategies that I keep hearing from Tiffany Caban, and I keep hearing from Zohran Mamdani, and I keep hearing from Jamani William? What are those? Like, that's it. So that's your homework. If you do that, we'll have a pretty good show. So yeah, hit us up. Hit us up in your DMs, because I don't get the hate for him, and then we just disregard it for people like Mike LaPetri or Jessica Tisch or anybody else in upper management or John Shell. He's still out there telling you Eric Adams is the best mayor in New York. It's insane. It's like it's the same thing. It's just this guy said he wants to go in elected office instead of living off the teat.
Yeah. Do you know which this guy used to work in internal affairs?
Group 54, the force group. So if you got into a use of force incident and there was a call out because of it, because the perp went to the hospital or whatever it is, this is who responded.
So Group 54 are they the ones who work by Sunset Park over there? I forget.
No, I think they turned out of Queens, if I'm not mistaken. Well, they used to anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why people think there's a difference, but again, the self-serving, former, the amount of self-serving we have in law enforcement nowadays, yeah.
You know what's interesting about this, right, John? I think you mentioned a good point, right? You said you think LaPetri's not with this, and Jessica Tisch. So we talk about defunding the police, right? We're not only do we point to politicians that are defunding the police, but we're actually defunding the police from within. So think about it. And here's someone who's openly supporting Zohran Mamdani running for state legislator, and the state legislator's responsibility is actually to implement the budget for the state. They actually implement what the budget is going to be for the NYPD. So here's someone that was a former NYPD incident detective. And John, you said he was a lieutenant. Who cares what rank he is? Bottom line, here's a former NYPD cop that's actually supporting to fund the police. That's what he's telling you, right? Because if he supports Zohran Mamdani, and Zohran Mamdani is telling you that they're going to cut from the NYPD, and he's running for state legislator, and state legislator sets the budget for the NYPD, he's telling you that he supports defund the police. And Jessica Tisch and Mike LaPetri, and exactly what John said, the upper echelon, the leadership of the NYPD, is supporting defund the police from within because they're supporting Zohran Mamdani. If they didn't support Zohran Mamdani, they would say, you know what, this job's not for me. I'll go find another place to work. But they're still there. And in order to still be there and to thrive through their job, they have to push the agenda of their boss. I'm sorry, but if you're working for an organization, whether it's private or it's civil service, you have to work at the helm of your boss. If not, you're not going to be in that job. So the answer is yes, they are supporting defund the police. Why? Because they work for Zohran Mamdani. And here's someone who was a former NYPD cop openly telling you he supports defund the police.
Yeah, I mean, they're actually where he's not. He's because he's openly doing it. They're sitting there and lying about crime statistics, telling you everything's down. You're at historic lows. They're saying you need more of this shit. That's why I have more respect. I could disagree with somebody. I could disagree with someone and respect them. Like, look, I get it. That's what you think. I don't agree with you. But like when you're a complete phony, like, and you know that shit's not true, and I know you don't believe none of that stuff, that's when I got no respect for you. Because I know deep down you don't believe that, and that's the stuff that bothers me. Same thing with the mandate. I know John Shell thought that was BS, but he was like, you know what? I got no integrity anyway. I'll just tell if that was me, I would have just did this. If I didn't want to take it, I would just do something. I would just do a workaround. But like and then to sit there and be like, just take it, blah blah blah, whatever. To me, that you're worse. You're worse than the guy who I just disagree with, and I could think is completely off. Look, I to be fair, like Tiffany Caban's a maniac, but I believe that she believes what she's saying.
Good point.
Right? She's a maniac, but I believe that she believes it, and I'm like, okay, well, it's a lot more respectable than when you're just saying it and you don't believe it and you're doing it for money. You
believe she's genuine behind her craziness.
She's insane. Yeah, like she is legitimately insane.
Yeah. I don't believe for a second this lieutenant actually supports all the progressive crap. First of all, he's Bengali, okay, and all the Bengali people I know, they have conservative families. They're not down for all this liberal, progressive nonsense. Especially if they're Muslim. It's like you don't live at home with those same policies that you're pushing for the rest of the people and that you're supporting for the rest of the state, But
speaking of my girlfriend, Tiffany, she's dressed in her DSA garb with her nice roses on that ugly brown sweater. Listen to this. This is yesterday. I was watching this and like pretty dull meeting, but it's always a good meeting when Tiffany Caban's there. You're always going to get a couple of clips.
She brings life to the show.
She brings light to the show. It's like as soon as she goes, I hit record. I'm like, okay. As soon as they say we're going to Tiffany Caban, I rewind, I get the recorder on. And here you go. Here it is.
Recidivism is a flawed metric, right? It's not a comprehensive measure of success. It doesn't take into account structural conditions, race and class bias. It doesn't take into account NYPD priorities or policing priorities. And so I think there's a tension here because we're seeing the increase of use of precision policing, which has been debunked study after study. We are seeing the increase of broken windows policing. We're seeing a continued criminalization of cyclists. And so like those things obviously affect recidivism rates. I think just making sure that we aren't looking at recidivism through a vacuum of personal responsibility, but also systemic changes. We know that there needs, and that's where reentry comes in, right? We know it's like employment, financial stability, health. So hoping that we can continue to talk about those things. Right.
So just so you know, Sandy Norse is sitting right here, and she is a left-wing maniac, but she can't even contain herself. She's laughing at it. So she told you that recidivism is a flawed metric. She doesn't tell you how it's a flawed metric. Then she goes on and tells you that, the New York City Police Department has been involved in precision policing, also what you know as broken windows theory, which known as that, right? And she says that precision policing's been debunked in study after study, even though there are no studies to back up what she's saying at all. And then she goes in and says that we can't look at recidivism from a lens of personal responsibility, meaning that we can't blame the person we can't blame the person that continuously commits crime. And then she says that the NYPD is criminalizing cyclists, saying that if you're riding a bike on the sidewalk, that you're being criminalized by the NYPD, I guess because of summonses. But they're not considered as recidivists. We don't track people who ride their bicycle on the sidewalk numerous times a day, right? Like we don't really have riding the bicycle on the sidewalk recidivists. So, but she's a complete maniac, but I do believe she believes every word of everything that was spewed out of her mouth. Huge. You want to talk about a huge waste of money and taxpayer? You're looking at it right there. this whole meeting was a huge, and you had to listen to the mush mouth commissioner for Department of Corrections too. Guy couldn't it was just like, yeah, I haven't had time to look at that. Nah, I haven't had time to look at that. But like his opening statement, it was like, I was like, come on, man. This is just nothing's getting better for anybody. Not the prisoners, not the guards, not anybody. This whole meeting was a waste of time and a waste of taxpayer money.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, she never disappoints. Anytime she talks, it's like, oh, here we go. It's a platform of laughter. I love it. Look at Sandy North. Like, oh my God.
She can't even hold it. She's like, what the fuck is she talking about?
You remember that scene in Billy Madison where the host is like, that is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. You've wasted all our time. Yeah. And
Crazy 10-7 says Sandy North is definitely kind of hot.
What she said also reminded me of that skit from In Living Color with Oswald Bates.
Yeah.
Remember the prison lawyer?
Yeah.
It was so stupid, Jeez.
Sometimes Eric reminds me of him with his big words, though.
You like the big words, huh?
Yeah.
Patrick Donnie likes it. That's good stuff.
Another thing, what happened recently? So this former NYPD inspector Jamil Alteri, he goes and becomes the police chief for Hamtramck, Michigan, or whatever. So he's like the head guy there, right? He's in Michigan. He's the chief there. Some type of scandal breaks out, and he ultimately, gets suspended or modified or whatever. Fights it out in court, and they ultimately just agree on that he's going to resign. So someone sends me this the other day. It says, this is Jamal Terry's Instagram, and it says, honored to begin a new chapter in public service, serving as the assistant chief in New York City Health and Hospitals Police Department. In this role, I am proud to help safeguard the largest municipal hospital system in the United States, with New York City's Courageous, protecting 16 acute care facilities, over 5 million patients, and 35,000 dedicated employees. Grateful for the opportunity and continue to care, serving our cities and communities every day. So the person that sent it to me said, oh, the grift continues. But I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. Like, he never really got found guilty of anything. You know what I mean? Like, they ultimately settled on the resignation, right? Then I see this someone sends me. So I'm like, oh, this is pretty weird. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So this is a Facebook post from him now, and it says, thank you to everyone who supported me and expressed their support with kind words. I had to make a tough decision between continuing a career I loved or with a dear friend company that stood by me through the most difficult time of my life. The new assignment will not allow me to work with any private company. I'm still with J&K, and we have pending projects, which I recently learned, and I have been looking out to branch out in New York and keep working. Regarding previous allegations, as usual, the media likes to add sexy on everything. I was hired months after applying, and unfortunately, some have contacted the media to release additional false allegations aimed to discredit my reputation. At this stage of my life, I choose what is best for me and my family, and I will continue with J&K. And so I was like, what the hell is he like? What media is he talking about? And then if you look, the New York Times wrote about it, and they said Assistant Chief Jamil Alteri resigned almost immediately after starting the job, after the New York Times asked about the misconduct allegations while he was police chief in Michigan. So this was widely reported, all of this. So That's what I'm not understanding. Like, if these allegations would have kept him from being hired, then he should have never been hired. Like, how did they miraculously like look over that? Right? Like, what happened there? That's the real story, and the reporting doesn't address it, and and he doesn't address it really. Like, if those allegations were preventing him from being hired, how the hell was he hired? Because it was publicly reported, it was widely acknowledged, it was national news.
Okay. Well, so let's go back to the allegations against him, right? The allegations against him are that he not only drove a department vehicle while intoxicated, but there's a big there are issues. Basically, the allegation is that he tried to squash it, right? And that he also basically I think used the vehicle for personal reasons rather than department. It was a department vehicle. But these are some of it just based off a quick AI search. But anyway, there's a big controversy over Hamtramck, big issues, and he eventually settled with the city. But let's go to the article, right? The article, in that same article, it says a spokesman for Mayor Mamdani said that no one knew who hired Altieri. And I'm going to call BS on that, because if you recall back in what November, I think it's a week of November 15th. I don't know what day that was, but we talked about him. We talked about that controversy. He came up because he was rumored to be negotiating a job in the Mamdani administration, the then mayor-elect Mamdani, right? So I want to know, how is it that they don't know who hired him, okay? And I want to know, especially in light of this lady now being the deputy mayor of Health and Human Services. Her name is Helen Ortega Lataverde. And what's interesting about her is that she was also the CEO of Elmhurst Hospital. And Elmhurst Hospital is in the 110 precinct, which is on the border of the 115. And if you're in the 115, you know that your cops, you have hospitalized prisoners, you have an injured cop, you're going to Elmhurst Hospital. Elmhurst Hospital is one of the biggest hospitals in that area. And also, by the way, Elmhurst Hospital played a massive role in the scamdemic, because if you just do a search of it yourselves, guys. Go on Twitter and type in Elmhurst and COVID, and you'll see how much articles came up about Elmhurst being like the center of the ground zero for the epidemic, and how many articles and fluff pieces were put up about Elmhurst Hospital, right? So Elmhurst Hospital played a big role in that, in the scamdemic, okay? So anyway, you can't tell me, I find it hard to believe, right, that she did not know Altieri, since Altieri was the former CEO of the 115 precinct during from 2021 to 2023. So we were still in the scamdemic during then. So I'm calling BS on that. And also, just one quick thing. It's pretty ballsy of them to still hire Altieri after the controversy and after New York media, and especially us. We were going to talk about him again, right? We talked about him back in November. We're going to bring him up again. Pretty ballsy for you to still hire him with all that smoke above him.
Well, one thing we know is true is that when rumors come out, there's usually some truth to it before these rumors actually come out, because people are very careful for what rumors that they put out. So there's no doubt about it. We talked about cronyism and nepotism with the Eric Adams administration, but it appears it continues with this administration. And Zohran Mamdani, again, is no different from Eric Adams. Altieri is another Nepo baby. And I'm sure if he does get this position through some time in attrition, that eventually, as people start to forget, they'll figure out a way to slide him back towards the NYPD or working at the close hand of Zohran Mamdani. There's no doubt about it. His name has come up often. It appears he's someone else that has been just completely shrouded by scandal. A lot of it is rumors, they're allegations, but at the same token, that it's very similar to Eric Adams' administration. So we're starting to see a lot of similarities on different parallels with Zohran Mamdani and Eric Adams. It's just a different face. It's the same shit, just smells different. And that's where we're at right now. There's no doubt about it. Defund the police, as prevalent as ever. The DEI movement, it continues on with Zohran Mamdani. Tax the rich. And Eric Adams was not opposed to was not opposed to congestion pricing. So it's all the same. We're getting the same ball of wax. From former Mayor Bill de Blasio into Eric Adams and Zohran Mamdani, it's no different. We had draconian laws, and they will continue under Zohran Mamdani. And if this social worker apparatus actually comes to fruition, that AI and robotics will be here closer to you than you think. And I'm telling you, it's coming. I'm pretty confident that AI and robotics will be a major component of the NYPD coming forward. There's no doubt about it. So with that being said, we're 2 hours and 5 minutes into it. I have to cut out today. So I just want to thank everybody. Awesome roundtable as always. Like, share, and subscribe. As John tells you, like, and then hit that hype button. We appreciate it. I'll see everybody on Monday. Guys, have an awesome show. I'll talk to you later.
All
right, later. Let's make sure Eric didn't do any upfront overtime, all right? Because he's taking.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I'm putting that federal overtime slip in.
Yeah,
they can do one police
those FEMA funds.
Yo, can I get another pension here? I want another pension.
Yeah. We can work.
All right, fellas.
Yeah, have a good day, brother. Be careful.
All right, bro. Next week.
Later.
Oh, shit, I forgot he had to leave. Yeah. All right. What else we got? We don't really got that much more to go either anyway. So we got 2 hours. Thanks everybody for joining. Got about 750 people on here this morning. Thanks everybody. We went through the whole budget. What are thoughts about that? If you want to watch that, go back and watch later on. So other thing that I think is pretty important is former NYPD Police Commissioner Tom Donlan's lawsuit against Eric Adams and his NYPD cronies were dismissed. Pretty interesting to me. I gotta be, so one, Scola immediately filed that he's gonna appeal it. I read through the case, and I gotta say, a lot of what Jimmy Wagner and the Donald J. Trump Kings County Republican Club has been saying really just comes to fruition time and time again. Because again, I'm gonna say there's not a person out there, a supporter of Eric Adams, not a supporter of Eric Adams, all of them, all of us, anybody who knows exactly what was going on that doesn't believe every single word of that lawsuit. So now the truth and the criminal justice system don't always align, right? And that's kind of what Jimmy's been saying, is that like what's happening is our criminal justice system, the judicial branch, has just become an arm of the executive branch, right? Like, and that's what it is. It's like they're just whatever happens coming out of the mayor's office, it's okay, because basically he's God and there's nowhere to go. So if you have a corrupt mayor, there's nothing you could do. If you have a corrupt police commissioner, there's absolutely nowhere to go, because that's the system we have in place and the courts aren't going to rectify it. That's what I read out of that decision, is that to me, it wasn't a decision based upon law, based on the truth. It was based on an agenda. So what the decision said is that, well, the document was very lengthy. Well, obviously it's going to be very lengthy when you're insinuating there is a criminal enterprise being ran in New York City and how all of these people tie into one big conspiracy, right? A criminal conspiracy. Tell me how you're going to write a criminal conspiracy in a paragraph. You can't. It's impossible. Right. So the judge cited that. So they said, that it wasn't sure, and, you couldn't expect people to read through this. So that was one. The thing that really stood out for me, though, was that, well, Tom Donlan said that he had went to Eric Adams to tell him about the corruption that was happening, about how he was being boxed out, about it was all of his guys. He wasn't being allowed to make decisions, that they were promoting people behind his back, using his signature. And the judge ruled that as police commissioner, you do not have federal whistleblower protections. So if you report corruption to the mayor and he fires you as a result of it, there's absolutely nothing you could do, because the mayor's God. Now, I don't know, but does that sound accurate to anybody? Because it certainly doesn't. I mean, I know it sounds good for John Schell and Eric Adams. They're all over. John Schell saying he's got the receipts. when it's all said and done, when the lawsuit's officially over, he's going to talk about it. We all know that that's not true. He's not going to talk about it, because if he was going to talk about it, he would have came on the podcast and talked about it, right? He would have came on and said why this is bull crap, and he would have went through every point in that lawsuit, right? And he didn't, and he's not doing it. Why? Because, like I said, there's not a person that doesn't believe that it's not true. So, unfortunately, we're at the place in our criminal justice system at this time where you could be found not guilty, and you're 100% guilty. Right? You have case dismissed because, you're not even going to get your case to trial. No one's even going to hear it. And, you broke all these laws and no one really cares. And then you get to the point in our justice system where you have people that are taking plea deals, admitting guilt when they did absolutely nothing wrong. And so our criminal justice system is highly broken at the moment. It's still the best system out of any other place that we got on earth. Could it be fixed? Absolutely. And what could be done is the politicization of our justice system, the politicization of our judicial branch, both federally and locally, could be removed. And we could get non-biased judges placed in there. But unfortunately, like our police departments, they've been heavily, heavily politicized.
Yeah. I just got to jump off for a quick second, but before I do, I think that I wish Donald had spoke up earlier and prior to leaving office, because in a lot of ways we know the court's already co-opted, and you look at our cases and it's all stalled, right? But it's more productive I think, to get the information out in a public sphere, because if you wait on the courts, you're going to be waiting a long time for them to actually do their job, And also, I think at least he got the information out when he did. At least Scola dropped the case when he did, because in a lot of ways, by at least putting it out then, it prevented Eric Adams from winning a second term. So even though the courts aren't proceeding with his case right now, I think in the long run he's going to he's going to win. And I think also, and I've said it before, the city council is going to target this at some point, because they have no choice in terms of the budget. They're already blaming Eric Adams for his nonsense. And at some point, they're going to have to look back at all of that stuff. And I think they're going to look back at the contracts, the non-bargain contracts, and they're going to try to recoup money there. And I think they're going to look back at all the Eric Adams controversies and see where they could recoup money. So I think this is coming. I don't see how it's not going to come, because they're in such a tight place with the money. Look, if you raise corporate taxes, businesses leave. If you tax the people with property taxes, people get angry. Okay. And the Democrats get angry. So, I don't think it doesn't matter which side you are. People won't care when they go after Adams and his cronies and all the BS that were committed then. But I'll be right back, John. I just got to get that door.
Oh, do we got to do, bro? So yeah, but look. So Mikey G says he wish he would have spoken up when he still had the platform as the PC. Look, you don't give away your platform, right? And I think he did. And that was part of his lawsuit. And sometimes it takes time to see what's actually happening, right? You think all these people are against me, and you don't realize that, it's the mayor that's actually against me. So he went to Adams. Adams didn't do anything, right? Adams removed him. And then what happened? They went after his wife. It was already too late, right? It was already too late. And then he's like, wait, you're going after my wife now? And so I've spoken about it before. Like I spoke up in union meetings. I spoke up at work. Did I speak out publicly? I mean, I went as soon as I had the opportunity, right? But when did I get that opportunity? When I put my papers in. I put my papers in. What happened? Fox called, right? And then that's the only reason I was given the opportunity is because I left over it, right? I'm like, you're not gonna pin me into this situation. Like you're not firing me. Like I refuse to let you fire me. I'm just going to retire. You're not giving me that ultimatum. You're not sticking something. I'm not going to willingly sign off that you're exempted from all this. And I agree with everything you're saying, because I don't. And I'm not going to let you sit there and tell me what I believe and what I don't. And you're not going to sit there and tell me that Catholics aren't entitled to religious accommodations, but everybody else is. And so, I think that Tom Donilon did speak out. And I don't know. To me, I don't have much faith in the courts. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with Marlon. The one thing I'll say is I believe every word in Tom Donilon's lawsuit, every single word of it, every single word of it. Now, does that mean that makes it through the court cycle? Doesn't always necessarily mean that, right? I mean, you see it with a lot of the COVID cases, right? You know that New York City broke the law. You know that New York City illegally denied these people religious and medical accommodations. It's not even up for debate. I mean, the law's there. The evidence is there. We show you exactly what New York City did, and the judges are throwing out. I showed you on here. The judge said, how could a cop be a Christian? Imagine if they would have said that about a Jewish person or a Muslim person. That judge would have been thrown off the bar. They would have been thrown off the bench so fast. They would have been disbarred so quick for bias. Nothing happened. And she threw that case out. And nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. How could a cop be a Christian? Because of that whole how thou shalt not murder thing. I don't know cops murder people. I never heard that in my life. But apparently the judge thinks that huge disdain and bias towards Christians, towards Catholics. So I don't know that eventually that he'll win. But it's funny that Nin's got something to say about Jimmy Wagner. He says, Jimmy Wagner is the least likable person on this program, and that's a crowded field. So Jimmy Wagner was on this show. You were on this platform too. Not on this show. You were on, part of your network, the Guardians Power Hour. But here where we actually go in and give our honest opinions and do research and talk facts and talk honesty and talk truth, not push an agenda, not push to try to get someone to win lawsuits. We actually talk about it. We talk through it all, the good and the bad. Jimmy Wagner was on. Everybody loved him. Everybody loved Jimmy Wagner. Here's the other thing about Jimmy Wagner. Jimmy Wagner's an attorney that wins cases. Jimmy Wagner's an attorney that pushes back at the system. He pushes back at what's going on, all the illegal actions. Jimmy Wagner is actually the attorney that exposed the politicization of our judicial system. He's actually the attorney that judge said, how could a cop be a Christian? Unlike you, Nin. Unlike you, my friend. Unlike you, who's just pushing the same old tired race-based politics, who's just trying to win the same old tired blah, blah, blah. The mile-and-a-half run is racist because it harms black and brown people. It's a joke. I'm not even an attorney, and I would crush you. I would crush you if we were standing across just talking about fact, reality, and common sense.
Yeah. Yeah. You look at what happened during the scamdemic to every religious person. You look at what they were doing to the Jewish community. Like people just wanted to go to temple or go to church and listen. You can't do that. Yeah. Like I said, I was watching a lot of videos during the scamdemic, and I think everyone should every now and then just to remind you of what they tried to do back then. Just so you never forget it, because if they ever try to do it again, and mark my words, these people are thinking of ways to do it again. And Mamdani himself said it. The reason why he doesn't want to bring us back is because he doesn't want to lose the ability to do that again in the case of another scamdemic. Okay, so I think people need to not forget what they did back then, and how they try to demonize you just for going to worship God.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, anybody has any legal issues, reach out to Jimmy Wagner. Everybody should be signing up with the Donald J. Trump Republican Club because, Kings County, whether you live in Brooklyn, you don't live in Brooklyn, it's going to go national at some point. There will be a national chapter, and it's filled with everybody, Democrats, Republicans. Everybody gets a seat at the table. Everybody gets a voice at the table. Everybody gets to say something. Membership could be free or it could be paid. There's tiered membership. Check that out, definitely. Yeah, I don't know, man. So I don't know. Anything else we missed? There was so much news, dude. Like honestly, my brain is rattled from all the stuff. The other thing I heard, I posted about it this morning. It's Gun and Shield Day. So like I didn't have family.
Yes.
I didn't have family on the job, so like Gun and Shield Day for me kind of like just snuck up on me. But it was definitely like a proud moment in my life, even though I was really just there with my company members. And what Gun and Shield Day is it's the day that the NYPD deems you competent enough and efficient enough to carry a firearm. They assign you your firearm and they assign you your shield and your shield number, right? So still, I could vividly remember that day. Right. And so for legacy families, like a family like your father was a cop or your mother was a cop, regardless of your rank, whether you retired as a police officer, you're active as a police officer, you were a sergeant, you were a detective, whatever, those legacy families would attend Gun and Shield Day for about like literally 10 minutes. What they would do is they'd come take a picture with their family member, and they would pin the shield on their family member. That's all it is. It's like, it's just this little quick ceremony. It's just it's a proud day for the family. It's a proud day for your loved ones. It's not like a big what to do. But I recently been contacted by a lot of different people, recruits, OCIs, instructors in the academy, supervisors in the academy. And they're saying that for some reason, that the leadership that's currently in the police academy is saying that, well, only captains and above could attend Gun and Shield Day. And I think that is a horrible mistake. We know for a fact recently there was some pretty powerful people whose nephews or kids were at Gun and Shield Day, and they got some pretty expensive privileges put out there. And I think that that's wrong, obviously, but we don't really want to go further into those people specifically. Doesn't really matter what happened, but we just think that whole decision should be reversed. I think maybe the hierarchy of the police academy made a mistake, and they didn't really think that you need to be a captain in order for your legacy or your sacrifice to matter. So I think it's disgusting. I'm hoping that is reversed almost immediately before March's next Gun and Shield Day, because that should not happen. And if it doesn't, and that's what the decision you guys are going to make with, then hey, we'll just start talking about all this shit that happened at Gun and Shield Days recently. And I'm sure a lot of people won't like it.
Yeah. Again, this is the danger of you have a person running the department who doesn't have any experience being a cop, doesn't understand how these little things mean so much to us. She doesn't have. I don't think she has an appreciation for how much Gun and Shield Day means to like a recruit or a young cop. Because let me tell you, like when you get pinned and you realize that, oh shit, this is it, man. I'm about to hit the streets. I'm about to become that something that I like always wanted to do, and this is it, man. It's game time. It means a lot. So I think this is wrong. We talk a lot about how like legacy hires, how much a lot of them benefit from nepotism and cronyism, and how a lot of that should be gone. That which is true. It's true. I don't like the nepo babies and how they have like a easy time, but this is wrong. One thing that there's most definitely should be a perk of being able to get pinned by your relative or that family member who's been on the job before on Gun and Shield Day. That absolutely should be a perk, And we see all the hardship that cops are facing now, all the scrutiny, all the getting fired for just doing your job. The least the department can do is carry on this tradition,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Kaz Daughtry's sacrifice is no more important than a police officer who did 20 years or a detective. Everybody makes significant sacrifices on this job. Doesn't matter your rank. You make that sacrifice. This young man that was getting pinned, he's already been given that sacrifice. This is a while back, right? Like, this is the entering of that. So that's not rank based. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Nepotism doesn't matter anything. You're going to be out there freezing cold. You're going to be out there sweating your ass off. You're going to be out there with your life in danger. You're going to be out there making very hard decisions, and a lot of them real fast. Your life is going to be altered almost immediately. You're going to miss parties. You're going to miss events. You're going to miss time with your friends, with your family. That sacrifice happens almost immediately, right? And then to tell people, no, you can't come in here because you're a sergeant or a lieutenant or a cop.
Yeah.
You serious? You know, so I think Chief Morello, I think you should reverse that decision, you know, or else, hey, look, you know, we know a few things that I think, you know, the major media would absolutely pick up on because they like to beat up on Zohran Mamdani, and they'll gladly beat up on his police department. And, you know, I've been pretty quiet about it. So, but I know people who won't. I know another show that won't. So we could always hand it over to them too. So, hey, look, you know.
Yeah. Where are the unions?
Reverse.
Where are the unions? The unions, you got to speak up about this. You know, that's ridiculous. You know, and I see your comment here, sever the tether. It says that's just delusional. Nepotism ain't going nowhere. Yeah, nepotism will never completely go away, Sever, but it's never been more blatantly obvious than now in the NYPD. So you have to at least taper it a little bit, okay? It's getting outrageously out of hand, okay? And it's to the point where it's now affecting morale, okay? So unless you want to continue having a diminished police department and diminished service on top of the cuts that are being made and the veterans being pushed out and the inadequate people coming into the door now, okay? On top of all of that, you want to have continued demoralizing of those cops who are there. Unless you want that to continue, that nepotism has to be tapered in a bit.
I mean, especially on something as stupid as you walk into the academy and take a photo with your kid. Like, I mean, like that's we're not talking about getting transferred to white glove units where you're not gonna really have to be a cop, you know, and you're not gonna have to deal with all the nonsense. So, I mean, that's the easiest thing I think to do. Is that right? It's like just let them walk in the academy, they go in front of that stupid thing and they take a photo. I mean, like, how hard is this? How long did this take? I mean, what 20 minutes, 15 minutes? All right, yeah, listen, get back at it. You go back to the academy the rest of the day. Like, how hard is this? I mean, you know, and again, it's not like it's just the recruits that are mad about it, and it's just the legacy families that are mad about it. The instructors, the supervisors, they're all upset with it. And so really, where are they? Where is the detectives union? Where is the sergeants union? Where is the PBA? Where is the lieutenants union? Like you're saying that people in different rank don't matter? Like, so, you know, why? Because you're a chief? Because you passed 3 tests instead of 2? Like, what? And so, you know, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. You mentioned a guy named Matt in the chat earlier who took the test and is looking to come on.
Yeah.
There are people watching this right now who are looking to come on. And what do you think they're thinking of on top of what they're being told by cops, you know, and retired cops right now? They're seeing things like this. And, you know, you even before you even get on patrol and get a seat on that RMP, you're being treated like garbage. Okay. So do you think you're going to get the best people on this job with that now? With this atmosphere? You know, you're not going to get the best people on the job. It's absolutely ridiculous that this is even a discussion. You know, it's like what I mean. Geez, the job here we see the job hating you before you even start patrol, and hating you when you retire. You know, it's like this job just absolutely despises its own cops.
Yeah, no, it treats people like they're worthless, you know. And then you know, you got some people getting helicoptered in. It's like it's ridiculous. It's literally insane. It's, you know, it makes no sense to me, man. It makes no sense. All right, anything else before we get to the super chats? I think you know, you were talking about the distractions earlier. Do you want to get into that a little bit?
Oh yeah. So I pulled up an image earlier. Let me see if I could get it again. But the image was from Trump, who made an announcement yesterday that basically he's going to reveal what the government knows about these little little guys who come in shall we say sphere like objects, right? So I mentioned distraction because again, we got a lot going on in this country right now. We got the economy that's on pins and needles. We got people losing their jobs left and right. We got cities that are like facing budget crunches, and they're put between a rock and a hard place of either raising taxes on the businesses and pushing out businesses, or raising property taxes on the residents who or the suckers that are still there in those areas. Okay, so rock and a hard place. We got a lot going on in this country, and I talk about distractions in that they don't want you to pay attention to these important issues, which are going to affect the quality of life for you in the case of diminished healthcare, and the quality of life for your kids in the future. Because what kind of America are they going to live in if they can't afford a house? They don't have a job to work in. They have AI replacing them. And on top of that, you have a government that wants to spy on you, and corporations that want to sell your data. So there are a lot of issues ahead, and we get more and more distractions. And this clearly seems to be the latest distraction. And here you can see for yourself, this came directly from the White House's Twitter account. So yeah, we're actually going there. And as I've said many times before, this country, things are going to look real weird in maybe a year or two from now. Okay. But it's important for you guys to stay out of the low information bubble and not get distracted, and to do things like paying attention to what's going on with your healthcare. And I saw somebody made a comment in here about retirees. I think it's Pat Donahue, retirees contacting their unions. I don't know what you guys are waiting for. Look how many times they're attacking your healthcare, and a lot of you aren't. What you're just going to sit back and it's going to solve itself? You think the unions actually are looking out for your best interest now? You're off the job. They don't care about you. Okay. So you got to be paying attention to that. And sure, it'd be nice to know if these aliens exist or whatever, but these aliens aren't going to be paying your property tax when Mamdani raises it. Okay. So I'm just saying, don't get distracted by all this distractions. And just one last thing before we go, go and get on to Super Chats. I got sent this, by the way, from a friend. And what it's showing is the coming budget cuts to the sanitation. So street cleaning and sanitation, cleaning the streets and sweeping, that budget is getting cut in the following years. So again, you're getting austerity measures from the city. And instead of them doing what they should be doing, which is scrutinizing all the social services, the DOE, and all the money that goes to the progressive industrial complex.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke. Marlon had text a while back on a group text, and he said, watch, they're going to start distracting us with aliens soon. Because originally we were talking about like the Epstein thing, and like on a group text, like making fun of it. Like, what the hell is he doing? It's ridiculous, and he goes, watch, they'll throw out aliens. And sure enough, here we are. And look, hey, I think aliens are real. I mean, I think the universe never ends. I think we'd be a moron to think that there's no other life forms out there than what's there. I don't know that they're intelligent or not. I don't know what, but I'm definitely saying there's definitely stuff we don't know about. There's stuff we don't know about here on Earth, So, but, for like the distraction after distraction, watching Kash Patel and Dan Bongino on that podcast the other day, I didn't watch the whole thing because I just can't, but I just saw people posting clips making fun of them, and rightfully so, because I think it's a joke. You both failed to do what you're doing, and now all I see is Kash Patel talking about crime statistics and taking credit for national crime statistics that we all know are misrepresented and that most of these blue cities don't report to. So it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, dude, that's all you got? Oh, let's bring in the aliens. How about you start locking up some pedophiles? How about that? How about you start holding some pedophiles accountable? How about you start doing what Doge said it was going to do? How about you do that?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Tim Acosta says, that he's enjoys the comments that we let it go. Look, it's free speech, dude. It is what it is. People could say what they want. I think it's the most disarming thing to do is just allow people to talk, say what the hell they're gonna say. Before when I decided, I was like, I'm not doing this. There's nothing that I could do. I was like, I can't take the thing. I just can't go against my conscience. I can't deny what I'm being told. I just can't do it. Like I wrestled with God for days and days, and I'm like, I can't do it. I didn't sleep. I'm like, I guess this is the end of my career. And so I submitted for a vested retirement, and then, like I said, Fox News called and I'm like, oh, do you want to come on? And I'm like, no, because in my head, I'm like, I'm scared, right? I'm like, oh, what are they going to say about me? I've had a checkered past. I've been arrested. I hung out with idiots when I was young. I've made mistakes, and all these different things. I've sinned in every way imaginable that everybody else has. Right. And then I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, is it really that bad? Am I really that bad of a person? I'm not. It's just who I am. Like, why am I hiding it? I don't hide it from my family. I don't hide it from my friends. Why do I need to hide it from the public? Let them say whatever they're going to say. And so I went on there with that attitude. And sure enough, you get a lot of hate. And then one of my friends was like, dude, you should really get on social media. A lot of people enjoy what you talk about, blah, 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 blah. So go on social media. And I went and I approached it with that same attitude. Just let everybody say whatever the hell they're going to say about you. It is what it is. You can't control people's opinions, and you shouldn't try to. You shouldn't even try to win the argument. Just as long as we're talking, it's a good thing, right? And so then same thing with the podcast. I started the podcast. I was like, I'm gonna just let people say what they got to say. I'll sit down with people I don't agree with because, again, I'm not trying to win the conversation. And it's the same thing here. Like, look, the only time we really ban people is like when they start to take over the chat. It's the only time we're going to ban somebody on here. It's the only time, there's some comments that just aren't related to the conversation. We won't have them. While you're not going to let people control what we're talking about or control the show. But, if you have questions, concerns, that's what the super chats are for. At the end of the show, we read them out. And if you have questions, we'll answer them, whatever the hell they are. Right? Like, you know what I mean? It is what it is. Like, we're just not afraid of the debate, and we don't have to agree. And it is what the hell it is. You know what I mean? Like, it is what the hell it is. Like, Nin doesn't like us. It's okay. But like, you're welcome here. His opinion matters, and again, we're not always right. My opinion's not always right. Marlon's opinion's not always right. Eric's opinion's not always right. Rob, Ron, Tom, Pete, we're not always right. We're right most of the time, but but listen, we're not going to get to a better place in this world if we can't hear each other. You know what I mean? And if you're going to troll, then that's on you. I troll, but I do it for my own name. I do it for my own photo. I troll in person. I troll online. I mean, that's just my personality. There's no hate or anger behind it with anyone, including with Shell or any of them. And like I said, the only time it became personal for me was when my kids started getting threatened, because that crosses the line with me. That's totally there. You threaten my kids, you threaten my wife, you make it very personal for me. You know what I mean? You could say whatever the hell you want about me. You can even threaten me. I don't care. So.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Nin, hate isn't the opposite of love. It's apathy. If Nin didn't like us, Nin wouldn't even be watching us. But he's here every day calling us idiots. Okay, but he's here every day, so we appreciate you coming on here, Nin, and pushing back against us. You make the chat even more lively. So same thing with Juju. I don't know where Juju is these days. He probably thinks we're gonna sue him. But we're not.
I'm not telling Juju. Yeah. Don't worry about it, Juju. Yeah. You're good. You're good in my book, bro. You're good in my book. So, all right, let's get to these super chats. All right, first one. Jason's got an interesting question. Marlon, are you bald? Hat is glued on your head. So it's funny. Marlon actually doesn't wear a hat when we hang out, and no one fucking recognizes him. And then everyone, and I should wear a hat because everyone comes up to me.
Yeah, I said that already. I'm like, this is great. I just take up the hat. Nobody knows who I am. But we can't walk a corner. We can't walk any sidewalk, especially in Bay Ridge, without somebody knowing John,
Yeah, it's funny. I'm like, why doesn't? And I'm like, you know, Marlon, right? You watch the podcast? They're like, yeah, yeah. I was like, that's Marlon. Oh, that's Marlon. I'm like, yeah, that's Marlon. That was a good one, Jason.
Yeah, but no, Jason, I'm not. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Jason. I heard he's got. I heard he's
Getting a
got
little light, but no,
I heard he's got a trip to Turkey book, Jason. So if you start seeing Marlon come on here with like long wavy hair, it looks like it wasn't done. You know he took the Turkish Airlines trip. Him and Adams. Snake Plissken, beat me up, Scotty. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just laughing. I'm just sitting back laughing. You know, I just don't know what I do in like the next national election, like how I vote. You know, like somebody like the Republicans here were calling me. They're like, what do you think? And I'm like, I gotta be honest. Like, I just don't even care anymore. I'm like, I see why people say they don't want to vote. And I've never felt like that in my life. But I see it. You know, I see why that's there. But I'm obviously going to continue to vote. I don't recommend handing the system over, but like I see why people are there, you know. So all right. NYPD 8311. Started watching from the beginning under my actual name. When you and Eric were reporting on khaki pants and car chases on the FDR. Nephew's on now. Show is great service to all current and retired. Thank you, brother. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you always being here. Khaki pants no longer exist. I mean, the unit still does, but they're back in regular uniform. I personally think that was a good move. What do you think about them removing the khaki pants? I thought it was like making them like this elitist unit that were just dropping collars off on commands. I didn't like any of that. I thought it was like, I like just a basic uniform. You could be a different unit, you know. What'd you think about that?
Well, I thought it's kind of just it was a little silly. You just put on khaki pants and they're basically just the same old condition scene. Yeah. What I really want though is the return of crime and plainclothes cops, because you need there are certain advantages to being in plainclothes and being able to walk up on people. You know, I was literally able to walk up on people and they would be like, they wouldn't even figure out that I'm a cop. Yeah. So I think there are advantages to that, and we need to get back to an adult department that gives that believes cops can wear plain clothes, and be able to identify themselves and let people know who they are when it's time to get to business. But at the same time, you shouldn't be putting everybody in plain clothes. That's the problem. You should be putting on the qualified guys who've done their time in like conditions and worked their way to crime and who know what they're doing. Not every other unit should be in plain clothes. It should be a select few in a precinct who do a specific job.
Yeah, and that are supervised, right? They're directly supervised by someone. They have a soul, just like the way it's always been. And like, to me, I think it's important that not only does it come back, but it's precinct level based, not borough level based, and not citywide. Because you take the guys in a precinct that work in that command and work their way up through patrol, through conditions, whatever you call those units now, and then they get to be plainclothes cops. They know more about that precinct and they know more about anything that's happening in that command than the commanding officer knows, than the police commissioner knows, than any unit knows, than any detective knows, than anyone. They know that command in and out, and you losing valuable experience when you take those guys away, and you put them at a severe disadvantage when they don't have the ability to be in plain clothes. So I agree with you 100% on that. I just see everything I see though is always wants to be at like a borough level or a citywide level, and they're just not as effective. They're not as effective as crushing things in the moment, and as anti-crime ones. So I totally agree with you with that.
Yep. I think the COs, this is also about empowering the COs, because the precinct commanders, because if somebody made me the PC, I'm putting the agency back on precinct commanders, because again, you're a commander. You shouldn't have to wait for one PP to tell you what to do. You should be making decisions. You should have the people necessary to do things, and those people include specialty units like crime that you can target certain patterns and issues in your precinct before they get out of hand. And they need to empower people in the precincts, and that especially includes the precinct commanders.
Yeah, no, I agree. So it's told to you so back when it says Jimmy Wagner is the effing man and has more testosterone in a single hair than most have in their bodies. Now, look, I agree. You know, Jimmy's a fighter. You know, he's a smart guy, and not, you know, he's got a spine, and he puts his money where his mouth is. You know, there's not a lot of people that do that. You know, most of what the dude does is like he's going in his own pocket. He's taking money from his family that he worked for, that he earned, and he's putting his money on the table. And you know, he's becoming a major player in Brooklyn politics and state politics throughout New York and New York City politics. So yeah, I support Jimmy Wagner. I consider him a good friend. You know, somebody that I you know, very, very few people. Jimmy Wagner's a good dude.
Yeah, fearless to be putting up the fight that he has. You know.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of lawyers in the city, but very few of them want to tackle certain issues that are really civil rights issues.
Yeah, and they go after them too. You know, they went after his license. They're going after other attorneys' license right now. Say, oh my God, my sorry, I've been under the weather. All right, but yeah, we'll get through this. So, but they've been going after other attorneys. I don't want to put out who and what. I don't know if they want it to be public, but you're literally going up. I tell them all the time, you guys are going up against the devil. Like you're doing God's work. Like that's why there's no money in it, and there's a whole lot of heartache in it. You know, like so you're doing God's work. You know, so shout out to all the attorneys that push back. And again, most of them, when you look at those attorneys, they're not civil rights attorneys traditionally. You know, they moved in because they felt that they needed to. Same as us, right? I mean, I never wanted to be doing live shows. I don't think Marlon did, Eric. You know, none of us wanted to be a media talking head. I just wanted to be left alone, you know? I wanted to just go to the library, you know? And that's it. Sit in the back. So, the Smith, he says, ask Haktui how they do it in Bangladesh, clown. Look, again, you know, I got no hate for the guy, dude. I don't agree with him at all. I thought he was grifting to get in the Mamdani administration, but he looks like he has his own run, apparently. And you know, to me, I think the guys that are sitting up there at the top right now with stars on their shoulder are much worse. I do.
Yeah, I just think they're all unprincipled, you know. You know, they preach, they want something for the rest of us that they themselves aren't going to be subject to.
Yep. I agree. All right. What do we got here? Sleepy Joe's. Crazy how everything that any New York City politician reads out always includes the words black and brown, no matter the subject. It's ridiculous, dude, the whole thing. I mean, we talk about it on here all the time. It's divisive tactics. We learned about this early on when we were kids. Divide and conquer, right? That's what it is. It's that simple, you know. Here we go. Darian King, super sticker, 1999. Darian, thank you. Appreciate you. Never seen you on here before. Appreciate you. Welcome to the show. 516 Diecast. Wishing you all a safe weekend. Thank you for another informative and helpful week of shows. Would have been an honor to work with all of you in the field. Same here, sir. Appreciate you always being here with us. And yeah, I mean, I think that's it, people. I think, you know, we had about 750 people on here, a little bit more. Appreciate everybody for coming on, everybody's thoughts. You know, thank everybody for donating to the channel. And that's it. We're going to keep rocking out. I'm sure on Monday we got a lot more to cover. We're going to start getting guests back on. I apologize. I just been a little under the weather this past couple of weeks. I've been traveling and a lot of stuff going on. But, you know, this elections are coming up. We're going to start to get politicians back on here. We're going to start to get cops back on here. We were supposed to get back into that flow, but then the dude we were going to have on got food poisoning. So, but we'll get back into that flow of the Wednesdays again. So, appreciate. Hope everybody has a great weekend. You know, and anything before we get out of here, Marlon?
No. Thank you guys for joining us. I thank you for the super chats. I usually like to respond to each of them individually, but we had a information-packed episode today. But thank you anyway, and thank you for joining us, and have a great weekend, and be careful if you're on patrol. This weather is kind of crappy today, like I said, and stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, people, Finest Unfiltered. We will be back at you. All right.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?